Most people don't. Honestly, most people don't know what it is, don't know that it's an option. I think I spent 40 years of my life not knowing that it was an option. So I'm actually curious, how did it get on my radar? Where did financial freedom come as an idea for me? So for you, Matt, the Lumberjack landlord who has reached financial freedom, financial independence and financial freedom, you can work if you want to, you can choose to not work if you want to. You don't have to sell your life 1 hour at a time. So you've achieved financial freedom. What made you think that it was possible? How did it get on your radar?
I think, I just kind of at a very young age, I was always working for myself, but also for other people. It was both. And so it was, I had, a paper route at 11 years old. I was mowing lawns at 12 years old and things like that. And so I was like, you know what, this is great, working for myself, but having to literally, I recognized that young, I had to create my own opportunities. And then I worked for some people that, I worked some retail for a while, and I was like, like my schedule, and this is what it is, and everything's dictated to me, and I gotta do it. It's not my call. And if I didn't want to do a lawn one day, I didn't do it. I did it the next day. It just had to eventually get done. So that's how it kind of got on my radar. I was really young, kind of in my teenage years, recognizing that it was a whole lot more fun doing something that I enjoyed that paid me well. At 15, 16 years old, or 16 years old, I was making $300 a week, which is a ton of money at 16 years old. And not having any bills except for my car insurance, and my gas. And so that's really where it kind of started for me. Was I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else my entire life and have them making all the rules.
And that's funny because that's almost literally the opposite of me.
Of course it is.
So I started work at 8, right? I worked in onion fields next to my mom. Then I worked in a donut shop from like 10 to 12. At around 15, I started stocking shelves at a store in California when they didn't really have as strict laws as they do now. You have to be 16 and only certain hours of a day.
Sure.
I taught kids martial arts at the studio that I was practicing at. So it was more of a way to pay for that addiction than it was a way to make money. And my family runs businesses. And the way, I'm going to put this on the internet because most of them, one of them still doing it. Most of it is done illegally. Like my brother actually advertises in California right now, currently today, unlicensed arborist. Because people think they're getting a better deal if he has a license, right? But he advertises that way, and insurance wasn't a concept to them. So I thought I would work for someone else. I'm a good employee, right? I can work 60 hours a week for someone else like it's no problem. I've pretty much always done that. I tried a couple entrepreneurial things, and one failed because of my spouse I chose. The other one failed because I didn't run it right. And I learned I'm a better employee than an entrepreneur, right? So I'm not an entrepreneur. And always people always laugh when they go, well, you're not working, you have to be an entrepreneur. Like, no, I'm an investor.
Yeah. Yep.
And for me, the idea of financial freedom, now that I'm thinking about it, came from that day I decided I need to create my own pension. So it wasn't so that I wouldn't be in a position where I had a boss, right? I actually never mind. I kind of like having a schedule, because I would just lay around and play World of Warcraft all day, every day if I could, because that's what I'm doing now that I can. But if I didn't have somebody saying, okay, you work these days, this is where you need to be, I don't think I would have been very productive. So yeah, for me, financial freedom wasn't that work freedom that you've got, right? You've achieved that. And I think you're going to be kind of like Michael Zuber, where one day someone's going to say, this is what's on your plate at work. And you're going to be like, no, it's not, because I'm out of here. That's the solution.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with the people, when we get to the questions, that's the purpose of today's live, is to answer questions on financial freedom, financial independence, whether it's real estate related, work-life balance related, which I heard Meet Kevin's video this morning on work-life balance was kind of interesting. I'm wondering, what do you think, Matt? Because you're the math guy.
Yeah.
Percentage-wise of population, how many people do you think know financial freedom is a thing?
20% maybe.
You say 20 or 40?
20.
20. Okay.
Yeah, it's a small number.
So 20% of the people know it's a thing. That okay, I could see that seems a bit high. Especially when you think of maybe you interact with contractors and people who are running their kind of own businesses, Yeah. I mostly interact with employees. Even if it was when I was running the school, I was working with the presidents and CEOs of major trucking companies. They're employees, right? They weren't, I wasn't talking with the owner of Werner.
Yeah.
I was talking to 13th echelon down recruiter guy
Sure.
who ran the division or whatever. Employee mentality. So in 10 years of reaching financial freedom, I know 2 people who worked with me. One of them did it and one of them is working on it. It's 2 out of, I don't know, 400 probably over the cycle of the decade, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So 20 that know that, because the people that work with me knew it existed. They're like, Dion's always doing that weird stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
Tenants stop by the office and drop off, $2,500 in cash covered in glitter. Like it's just weird. I actually have a tenant taking out a loan against their 401k to pay 2 months rent because they want a month without a rent payment. That was another one of the reasons why I was wondering how many people know about financial freedom, because it seems like there's these tiers.
There definitely are.
Like, so I've reached financial freedom. I can goof off every day, right? You have exponentially a larger portfolio investment, work scope going on, $600,000 in repairs going. So like even at reaching financial freedom, there's a spectrum.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then there's the people. I think there are people who don't know that you can learn on YouTube. Like that level of absolute, and I'm going to use a strong bad word, ignorance when it comes to money, right? That their formal education when it comes to money is their parents and their teachers. So parents, it's a shotgun. It could be anything. You could have wealthy parents who teach you the wrong things because they want to get even with their parents. It could be super poor people who teach you money is evil. And it could be a teacher who, I love teachers, but they chose a schedule based on education. I want my summers off. I want my winter vacation. I want to help people, helping people's trumps making money. And so you have teachers teaching kids who the majority of them don't understand money.
Agreed. Agreed. 100%. Yeah, I think for me, it was, I talked to a lot of my friends have kids that are teenagers and going into college. And so many of them really understand freedom pretty well. And so a lot of them are already thinking, hey, my side hustle is going to blow up and I'm going to be an influencer. Now, so I think the much higher number of people that age understand that. However, the number of them that will be successful, it's going to be a rude awakening for 95 out of 100 of them, Maybe 5 of those people can actually make a side hustle a real job in their early 20s where they can move out and live on their own and have a car and do all that other stuff. Many of them will, chase that in their mom's basement and it will never amount to anything.
So I have a comment on that, but before I do, I want to read through Millennial Mike's super chat here because Mike, I had this thought last night. Actually, the last time we talked after recording, I kind of gave you some hints on what you should take with you when you travel. You've been on lockdown for a year, so you haven't really been traveling with YouTube and understanding that your mic makes a huge difference. Your lighting makes a huge difference. Your camera, your background, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of why you have a travel tapestry. But Millennial Mike, thank you for the super chat. You say, don't worry, fellas, I'll coach Matt through a travel pack of live stream gear next time so we can get him in the 1080p high quality sound we all need. Agreed.
Yes,
that's okay.
I will take the lesson gladly.
My first couple of streams on the slides, I learned my lesson. I was like, the directionality of wind is massive compared to which way the mic is facing, and just turning your body can make a huge difference. Like my last live stream, I had a perfect spot, and then it got invaded by people, and I had to leave. The last 2 minutes, you could barely hear me. So yeah, we'll work on that.
I'm ready. I'm ready to be schooled.
Nice. Well, Mike's probably got way more much better information than I do.
Mike carries all of his gear with him everywhere, like he's Bear Grylls cameraman.
Everything in mine is compact. So if you could make a balance of what he's going to suggest, and when you need to say travel pack though, so that might help.
I'll be ready. I'm ready.
So Chester, All Nighter, Rob, Mandy, Michelle, Financial Firefighter, Mark, howdy, good morning. Thank you for showing up early in the chat like that. I appreciate it. I know that YouTube kind of limits how many updates you can get, when notifications when a video comes out.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Michelle Meyer says, I never thought of it that way. It looks the way it looks now, and have been trying for so long, not really knowing that is what I was trying to do. Kind of like a lot of people say, I didn't know I was house hacking because I didn't know that's what you called it.
Right.
But once you're doing something, that just because you now found it doesn't mean you were doing it wrong or anything. It's a strategy that works, and you found it too. So, Clint, howdy, welcome to the membership. I'm going to be making the notification for the video today at 4, looking at people's in the Zoom, looking at each person's market and kind of looking at their leads from their agents. And Esther sent in a spreadsheet we're going to be going through on how they do it. And they invest at a distance with rehabs and are retiring. And he retired in December. I think she retires at the end of this year. So that's going to be fun.
Awesome.
Nice. Awesome. Rob asked if anyone is getting bites on sub-2 offers.
I've made a couple. No, they want to just sell outright.
It's finding the right seller as much as finding the right deal.
It is. Yep.
So Clint, personal insights of the week. Financial freedom is a team sport with all family members and helps focus everyone in rowing in the same direction. Example, your habits affect the future and vice versa. So yes, I definitely think that matters when it comes to your spouse. I think that is probably the most important family member that has to be going in the same direction as you. Most of my family thinks I'm an idiot. Most of them do. I joined the Marines, and they said that, how can you have somebody tell you when to go to the bathroom? That was literally the only complaint. It's as far as the conversation ever went with my family. My dad never owned property. He thought that meant telling the government where you lived. And even my brother, who has 10 paid off rentals and has been retired now for 8 years, retired at 50, he's been retired for 8 years. He can do anything he wants, right? Tells me I'm an idiot because I did it with mortgages. And if you have debt on real estate, you're an idiot. So most of my family is not going in the same direction. Most of my family is worse than paycheck to paycheck. But my spouse is going in exactly the same direction as me. We've never had a disagreement because I don't have one.
Right.
Always been good at keeping custody of kids. Never been good at keeping a girl around. Half the people watching said, "A girl, really?" Chester, I'd say more unawareness than ignorance. Great correction. Yep. Even though they're referencing the lack of understanding of something. Case in point, I never learned about most of what happens on Wall Street until after I turned 30. I still don't know anything about what happens on Wall Street and don't want to. I'm very happy. I was happy that I made it to my 40s without knowing the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. Didn't care, didn't know, was just oblivious. And then I got a stupid job where I had to interact at a level with politicians and blech.
I agree. I concur.
Wandering Doc, Rick, good morning, howdy. So you're in Vegas.
I am.
How busy is it?
In what way?
Packed people. You've been there several times, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's so I haven't been on the strip yet. I've been just out and about, and it's plenty. I mean, we take the kids to like play places and things like that so they can experience new stuff. We took them one place yesterday, and there were probably occupancy of 95 is the max, and they probably had easy 70, 75 people there at $14 a head in the middle of a school day or middle of a week. So I'm not seeing the line to. We try all the West Coast restaurants while we're here because we don't have them. We don't have, In-N-Out Burger. We don't have, I know you like McDonald's better than In-N-Out Burger. But we try all that stuff, and every place still has a line. Every place is still.
Do you know about In-N-Out Burger's secret menu?
I don't.
It's on their website, so it's not real secret. It's just not anywhere in the restaurants.
Okay.
So there you go. Something to Google. Something to try.
I will look at that. Yeah. So we like to try all that other stuff, but yeah, I've not been anywhere where there hasn't been a line. So I'm not, grocery store is packed. Everything's still packed. Every event that we took the kids to was packed.
Do you gamble?
I do.
Okay. What's your game of choice?
It's either blackjack or Pai Gow poker.
Okay. I figured it'd be something like Pai Gow with your math skills. Yes. Here's what's funny. I used to gamble. Yes. Right? I actually played a lot of 21. I used the Hoyle system counting face cards versus small cards. Sure. Was never got good enough because it was recognizable what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I would gamble when I had no money.
Yeah.
And my brain would say, look, you're broke. You have $20 to your name. If you lose this, you're just going to be broke without $20. Who cared? As soon as I got some money, I haven't gambled since.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'll gamble for a charity where it's like you go in for a Texas Hold'em and you put in, $20 or $50 or whatever, and it's going to go to whatever, but you play for the title kind of thing. I love that kind of stuff. So I really benefit from, I live in Washington State. There are a ton of casinos around here that have great food.
Yes.
Super cheap prices because they're hoping you just come in, you like the food, and then you gamble and give them all your money. And so I just don't gamble. And while everybody thinks I'm an alcoholic because I'm always drinking, my water during my videos, I don't drink when I go out.
Right.
There's no reason to pay $7 for a shot when you can pay $8 for the same bottle. What are you drinking for $8? That's gross. Back to the financial freedom. Scott Coleman, howdy, good morning. Viva Las Vegas. My comment on gambling is if you don't invest, that is the biggest gamble. I totally agree. And I say this, I don't know if I said it on my channel, but I say this on the One Rental at a Time channel often. Anytime we're talking recession, because I try not to talk recession or boom or housing bust or crash unless I'm trying to prove it wrong, because it doesn't matter. Right? Get cash flowing assets and you benefit from a recession, right? That's my mindset. So I don't talk about it much. So the biggest fear, and this is what I say on One Rental at a Time, is for the person whose sole source of income is a W-2, especially if you're in IT and you're making $150,000 or $200,000 a year, and then Silicon Valley crashes, the IT layoffs happen mass across the board. Yes, you can go out and get another IT job, but it's not going to be at $150,000 or $200,000 a year. Whereas if you're a police officer and you get laid off, you go and find a truck driving job and double your income, right? Like so the working class, the $20 to $30 an hour kind of people, I'm not as actually concerned as the people making $150,000, $200,000 a year, because that's a huge life change. Because for the most part, life creep took their expenses up to the threshold of what they can afford.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the rug pull happens. Yep, but Scott, you're right. If you're not investing, you are gambling.
Yep.
Because
it's funny that you said that about it's funny that you said that about the gambling thing, because I think that when we were broke paycheck to paycheck, we looked at gambling in a healthy way as much as you can, which is it was entertainment. It was something we could go, we could hang out with other people at the table and have some fun and do that sort of stuff. And so we enjoyed it. But now that in the last 5 years, I think I've sat at a table maybe, 4 or 5 times. It's not been a lot. It's pretty few and far between. But so we go and we do it for entertainment. But now it's actually an effort. Like I would have to get somebody to watch the kids. And then we would have, it would just be a thing, because at home, I think the closest casino to us was probably an hour and 15 minutes away. But because it's a high-end casino and it's new, there's no deal to be had there. It's just super expensive for everything to be done. And so you go there with the intent of only doing one thing, which is spending a lot of money. And I'm not a huge fan of that unless it's on property.
Well, and there's a ton of profit there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They built a beautiful building.
here's the chronology in 2 decades, 20 years.
Yeah.
There was a place called the Red Wind Casino. It's in a Nisqually Reservation here in Washington State. So free plug. They're not sponsoring me or anything. When I first saw it, my mom was alive and she played bingo in a garage. Like they had a garage. You could see the roll-up doors on the side of the building that they played bingo in. That's what was there. We're 20 years later. There is probably a 35,000 square foot casino with 4-level parking garage, and several different restaurants inside and everything, all based on the economics of gambling.
Exactly. Yeah, Red Rock Casino, which is like one of the ones that's for locals here, $1 billion they spent to build it. $1 billion. That was
so All-Nighter says, haven't found your email yet, Doc. It's probably right in front of me. It's because they don't allow links in here unless you're a moderator. So you could put a space between the .com or something and it'll show up. Wandering Doc. The reason that I'm leaving the service after my commitment is that I didn't like an E3 deciding when and where I can go on vacation if that makes me the bad guy. Yep. Sometimes our career decisions are made for us. My billet was full, so reenlisting. E4s were getting $40,000 reenlistment bonuses, but E5s were getting told you have to pick a new MOS, and that's only if you want to come back in, and you got nothing. So there's a couple of reasons on the downsizing that can happen. And the E3 deciding, I would almost be okay with. It's the 01 Wandering Doc. That's my problem with the military. You take a command first sergeant with 27 years of experience. And then you take a college graduate. And the college graduate is in charge of the combat veteran with 27 years of experience.
Yes.
I've never understood our military structure.
No, that's foolish.
But you did do 16 years. Nice. Hopefully you are aware, wondering about a quick segue from financial independence, kind of tied in. But in August of 2021, 2022, so last year, the PACT, P-A-C-T Act went in, and if you've been anything in country around the burn pits or anything toxic, they've got a new system out where you can be screened, and the VA says there's a 97% chance that your VA rating will be increased, but you only have this year from August of 2022 to August of 2023 to put in for it. So back on the real estate. Rick, howdy. Your fans say you are not an idiot. It's funny. I love my brother. My brother's awesome. I actually, not just because he's older and taller than me, but I look up to him in several different directions. He's a harder worker than me. I'm the lazy one in the family. And he called me an idiot for like several years. And one day he came to me. He didn't actually come to me. It came through the grapevine. He's wondering why nobody goes to him for advice. He reached financial freedom. He owns 10 rentals, paid off, right? He's got Sea-Doos and quads and ultralight and travels. Like no one knows where he's going to be week to week. He's got the life that most people would just not even think is possible. Nobody's asking him for questions. And so Matt, if you know someone like that, what would be your response? Why do you think no one is going to him for advice?
Jeez, I have no idea. Jealousy?
No, so that would have been that's probably what he thinks too. He probably thinks people are jealous because whatever it is. But here's the actual answer. It took me some time to come to this conclusion, right?
Yeah.
David, who doesn't watch my stuff, make a YouTube channel. Talk about it. Like no one knows where he's at, so he's never talking to the same people for very long. So how are they going to reach out?
Sure.
I don't think. So I worked with all those people at the CDL school, right? The 2 people that have actually done anything with it, I was putting this information out every day, but nobody was coming to me.
Yeah.
They are now that I've retired. I've had other owners of companies call me and go, how come you're not working? It's because I don't have to. But everybody has to work. No, you don't. Like, it's just a thought that's never happened to them. That's why I was kind of curious. How many people do we think know of financial freedom as a thing? Because when you interact with something, you see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at your Facebook feed, it's probably financial group, real estate group, right? Like just over and over and over, because they know you're in the one rental at a time group. So the algorithm goes, that's what you're into. Here's all these other ones we can suggest to you.
Mm.
But if you're on social media and you're going, what's the cool dance trend that just came off, went from Vine to TikTok to now Facebook, because those people are finally older, right? You're going to get more of that.
Thank heavens I don't get any of that.
All Nighter says a self-directed life is a great investment to all Wandering Dog, which I totally agree. Sully, howdy. I recently started managing 8 properties for my husband and will be going on our honeymoon in a month or so. How do you manage your properties from abroad or when you're in a remote location? That's a great question, because Matt, you're going to be needing to learn that differently. You've been on lockdown, so for a year you've managed like you were at a distance, so you've got your systems in place.
Yeah.
But now you're not on lockdown, and since that retirement is right around the corner, you're going to be doing that. For me, it was developing systems with my handyman. I want to say that is the more important than anything. You can Google at midnight 24-hour plumbing emergency service in any city and find the closest one. There might be a premium, it's going to cost you money, right? But a Google search, a couple phone calls, a couple emails, and your problem solved. But a tenant with an issue that you can't send a contractor, electrician, or plumber for, but you need either you or a property management person present for, almost every one of those situations a handyman's been able to handle.
Yep.
It's been over 2 years since I've actually had to go to a property. And that was because in 2020, we had the lockdown going on. And I wasn't going to send a handyman to go do something. I could say, look, I'm the owner. I'm just going to come and handle this myself. So get your handy people, more than one. I pluralized it and I ungendered it. So make it as many as you can. I have at least 2. I usually have 3, but one of my guys, I got a CDL and then got him a good driving job and lost my handyman. So always try to have that many. Develop a relationship with them so you gain their trust and that they have your trust. Like that's to me as important, right? They know they're going to get paid. They know that you're not going to nickel and dime them. You're not going to talk down their prices. Sometimes a handyman gets overpaid on a job, and then it balances out when they get that 10 o'clock call and they go handle it, right? So I'm okay with that. You're not compensating them for their time on that job. You're compensating them for the relationship that's going to let you travel. Or you can be like Matt and grow a property management company like Cody and Christian are doing, and just, hey, these are the people that handle it so I can live the life that I want to. That's not my route.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways. So I've, what I call property management insourcing. That's one of the things I teach in my course, is how to create a property management company without actually having all the responsibilities of a property management company. And it comes down to processes, it comes down to checklists, it comes down to tasks, it comes down to procedure. And when you implement all of those things, it's going to allow me the same thing that anybody else has when they go on vacation. I was talking to my property manager last night. I've been gone for 5 days. I have 137 units, and I've talked to him twice. And admittedly, one of the calls was nothing about property. It was about something else. He had a question about something else personal. So I've talked to him one time in 5 days, and that's for 137 units and 400 tenants. And so it's because when I left, we had policy, procedures, processes, rules, everything in place. So there's not a whole lot left to be interpreted, right?
Right. And Sully, your end question there is in a remote location.
Yeah.
Make sure that your procedures that are in place know you're traveling. Yep. They know to communicate with email so that whenever you connect to Wi-Fi, you can catch up, and that it might be a day or two between communications. So they kind of have to know the threshold of what they can do and can't do without your permission.
Correct.
Wandering Doc. In 2022, I traveled 7 times internationally and 4 times domestically. All of the hotels and restaurants are packed. People are spending money. No signs of a recession. So that's a great point. The signs of a recession, is GDP going to be down? Right. So probably the metric that you look at recession, we can probably hit it. And here's an example. When we look at foreclosures from 2015 to 2019, we have a certain number. Then all of a sudden you can't for 2 years, right? There's an eviction moratorium, foreclosure. You can do forbearance. So the extremely artificially low number of foreclosures that goes up 300% is still below normal. It's not back up to normal, but 300% sounds massive, like a crash, right? If unemployment went up 50% right now, 50% from where it's at, just half of doubled, right? Half of it. We went 50%. We would be at what is considered full employment. Full employment is a little over 6%. That's the metric that they say. If 6%, because 6% of the people shouldn't be working, can't work, whatever it is. So 6%, we're at full employment. We've been under 4. We haven't been this low this long since the 60s. So a 50% increase would put us at full employment. But imagine the panic, and we've had a 50% growth in unemployment. It's the end of the world. Everyone is. No.
So everything has to be taken in perspective. Everything has to be taken in context. And when you do that, that's why we're kind of chill about what's going on in the market right now.
All-nighter hider. Last time I was on the strip, I had a 12-pack. I don't know if you're carrying alcohol or you just ripped. Was dressed like Elvis and let the fun come to me on the sidewalk in front of the hotel. So much fun. I've had some good Vegas trips. I think I usually go with couples, right? Yeah. I should leave this as an overshare. So one time I went with 3 couples. All of them were broke up or divorced within 6 months from that trip. So this isn't going to be one of those kind of trips.
I mean, we can try, but
we've set the bar. There we go.
Exactly. I mean, we're going into it with 2 out of 3 being non-married couples. So,
Clint, I only gamble on purchase offers until the inspection comes in. It's a good way to look at it. So yeah, that's a shift I've done. There was a period of time where it's a tax on the poor, right? The lottery. The average person spending $200 to $300 a year on lottery tickets, with those astronomical odds of not winning the lottery. There was a period of time where I would get a lottery ticket once in a while, not so much because I thought I was going to win, but it's easier to daydream if you actually bought a ticket, right? That was how I justified it. But now to me, my lottery scratch tickets are my emails from my agents.
Yeah.
Every time an email comes in from an agent, I open it and I'm like, is this the scratch ticket that's going to add to my cash flow?
Yeah. Same
Daydreaming addiction, but with, like a 99.99% effective rate.
Yeah.
Matt from Rob, have you toured any houses in Vegas yet?
So yesterday we toured, so we kind of break it down into a couple different things. So the first thing we do is we tour area. So yesterday we toured 7 or 8 different areas. And then based on the tour of those areas, then we down select to, okay, now I want to see houses in this area. Because that's one of the things I would encourage most people. If you're shopping remotely, it's really tough to understand the context by which that property actually is. Like at 10 o'clock at night, do you see 6 guys hanging out at the, taking turns going to the washroom at the gas station, right? So that's kind of one of the things that we learn I learn when I tour places is I go and I actually will tour 6 or 8 areas. And then based on those areas, I'll then down select to the type of houses that are in those areas. So no houses yet. Houses will be next week, but area was yesterday. It was a lot of fun. There were 6 or 8 areas that we looked at, and I think we kind of narrowed it down to 2 or 3.
I haven't learned a new market, but I do pick countries that I travel to based on what they think of me.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So if you have a country that literally chants death to America in the morning, I'm probably not going there. Or if you have Hawaii, who hates mainlanders, I'm not going there. Right. I want to go someplace, and I'm not saying that's a country. I'm not that stupid. I am stupid. My family calls me an idiot. I'll own it. But I know that. I just know that I'm not like there. So I'm not going there. I did study Arizona and I did study Idaho to potentially purchase small multifamily when we were thinking of adding a campus there. So it would have been tied to my work, house hacking out of state. Like I was going to grow my portfolio that way. And I drove all over Phoenix, from Glendale to Chandler to Mesa, like everywhere. I was looking for a campus, right? But I would go into stores. I would go into the locations, and I know that there's like half of that area of Phoenix, my skin tone makes me the enemy. I am not welcome there. Like, okay, I'm not buying in this area. You take this town called Chandler, you go to the southern half of that, and I'm not allowed there. It took me a while to learn that. And you don't know that if you don't know an area. And I'm not saying I want to rent to someone like me, but if you can't go there safely,
Yes.
are you comfortable sending a property manager?
Yep.
So if you're going to look at Vegas, I don't know what the demographics is of where do the locals live, where the restaurants have a local menu, and then they have a tourist menu because it's a city built mostly on tourism. There's a lot to learn about that market. That so you're looking at buying there. I'm half looking at buying there just to have a kind of a snowbird option, kind of like you do in the winter. Except it gets freaking cold there in the winter too, so it's not like you escape it.
Yeah, we're in the 50s here, where we're in the teens at home. So that's kind of the difference for us, is that like the kids can go out and still wear kind of a spring jacket type of deal. But yeah, kind of what we learned yesterday was kind of confirmation, you know, like northern Vegas, like right around the base, if I want to own property, it's kind of like two different strategies, right? If I want to buy for investment, or if I want to buy for a home. And buying for investment is, if I want to, you know, the northern part of Vegas where the base is, it's a pretty rough area. It's pretty bad. But if you're doing base housing, well, it's not a big deal. And so that's where for us, like on the personal side, we kind of have our pick of where we think we're going to end up. Because then you have to account for, you know, like school systems and things like that and all that other good stuff. So yeah, we like I said, we kind of down selected to a couple yesterday, 2 or 3, and but it was a great tour. You know, Brian Lebo on YouTube and on More Rental all the Time, but has his own channel, is absolutely fantastic. Super gracious with his time, but check out his channel, Brian Lebo, or the Lebo group on YouTube, and he was gracious, gave me 2 hours of his time, drove me around and said, here's what you get here, here's what you get here, here's the downside to here. And it was an awesome education. And then just being able to see things and kind of how things are upkept, because the West is very different than the East. It is just unbelievably different. Unbelievably different.
Right. So if you're sitting here like me in Washington going, hey, I think I'm going to buy in Vegas, I'm going to own a house there, and you don't have 2 weeks to go and spend and drive around,
sure,
you're taking a huge risk.
Yeah.
When you call any city and you say, look, I have California or Washington money, I would like to buy in Gary, Indiana, or in Vegas, and that agent is going to have an amazing deal. Numbers are going to sound crazy, crazy good, on a property that every local investor passed.
Exactly.
For a long time. So that's cool that Brian spent the time developing that relationship with you. I'm going to steal a strategy from Millennial Mike. So Millennial Mike wanted to invest at a distance, but he sat back and he watched his friend Mark Matzke for months invest to see how the success went. So Mark put in all the work, and then Mike piggybacked. So at some point, I'm going to ask you where I should buy.
And that's the other thing too, is like when we move here, I know me well enough to know that I'm going to end up investing here. And so when I start investing here, you know, it was like, you know, some of the areas that we looked at, I said, okay, can you ever get a garage that's attached? They're like, no. I was like, okay. So it's like, I was like, I know I cannot really invest there, you know. And for me, I don't love the idea of buying a house and having a $5,000 a month single family rental. That doesn't make me, I'm not interested in that kind of a strategy.
So before we get to any more questions, what do you think is going to be the solution for the water problems in Vegas?
So I think that it's to the point where the feds will get involved, and then I think that they'll start making choices. What's really interesting that a lot of people know is that Vegas doesn't even use its quota of what it takes out of the river, so they're below quota. The problem is that all the downstream stuff to California and all the agriculture that gets fed by, you know, the systems up here in Vegas. So I think that there's going to be a solution. I think one of the amazing things that Vegas has done as a city is they are dialed in when it comes to use reduction. They are really well dialed in when it comes to use reduction. They give credits for tearing out your real lawn and your real thirsty shrubbery and replacing it with desert type of stuff, or artificial type of stuff. And so they've done a phenomenal job from that perspective. So I think the resolution is going to be multi-tiered. I think it's definitely going to involve the feds. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see. I asked that yesterday of a couple of people, and many of them are just like, yeah, like it's fine. It's gonna get figured out. I was like, okay.
Fair enough.
I mean, I guess.
All Nighter Hider says delayed gratification isn't sexy enough for people.
True.
I would really agree with that, especially based on some of the emails I received this week. So this week, we did a topic. I did a live stream on Tuesday, and then the Three Amigos did a topic that came out yesterday on what those first 10 years were like.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that we interact with want the first year to be 10 deals that produces at least $5,000 a month in cash flow. Right? Like mentally, we're like, people are doing this. It has happened. So I want to do that. Not, it took a year to kind of get my feet under me. I lost some money. The next year, I didn't lose any money, and I kind of understood things. And so by about the fifth year, now we start getting into the cash flow. That's a real thing. And it sucks. But that's the most likelihood of success comes from those 5 years sucking. If you're doing the big risks and going into the big portfolios really quick, that increases the likelihood of failure. Drastically. Afro-Capitalist, howdy, has a great question here. If you're entering a new market, what source do you use to get accurate rents?
So that's where it comes into my rent box. So as I'm looking at, as I build out my rent box, I would be calling around asking different agents what they use for rentals, i.e., is Craigslist the flavor there? Is apartments.com? Is MLS? And once you get an understanding from that, then I would look at my staples are always in every market is Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. That's always two of the staples, and then there's usually a third that gets thrown in by what a lot of the other brokers use. Maybe it's MLS, maybe it's apartments.com. And then I start just tracking it. And then I have a scoring system that I have in my rent box of, is it an A, B, or C area? And is the quality of the product A, B, or C? And then based on that, I can really start to target and I can get my rents in. And just like anything else, I'm not married to the idea. I put a rent out there, see if I get it. And if I don't within 10 days, I make an adjustment.
So
that's what I learned.
To get the rents in an area, I really like the idea of taking time. It's going to take time to build, because what things are listed for today doesn't tell you what the rents are, because they might sit there for 3 months at that price, or they might be gone in 5 seconds, so they were underpriced, right? Watching it for a couple of weeks. The agent thing is brilliant. I hadn't thought of that, so great. Thanks. I'm taking a note here. Sure. Finding out from agents what is the most used in that area, because if you're around a college town, it might be roomies or whatever. It might be something totally different. Is it Zillow? Is it apartments.com? Which one is used most in that area, and find out from the property managers and agents in that area. That's a great idea. But learning it for a few weeks to get an average is good, but you need to know the area. That's why it's hard to learn 5 markets and then pick one. So here's 2 examples. You're talking Las Vegas, and then there's a base, right? Most people who haven't been in the military, it's only like 3% of the population is a veteran, right? So it's not a lot of people there. A lot of people interact, have a family member, somebody who's in the military, but you don't know that there's the base, which has a federal fence around it. So you're on federal ground whenever you're on a base. Right outside the base is hell on earth. Like, you can't explain the people attracted to the base that aren't the spouses, that aren't the whatever. It's the, like most towns have a dive bar. They'll have military bars where they prey on the low ranking people. You have car sales lots that pop up close to base to prey on the uneducated lower ranking people. You have, I live near Joint Base Lewis McChord, little town outside of it called Lakewood. 90% of the town is great, 10% right up abutting the base. It has all kinds of slurs associated with it because of how bad it is being that close to the base. So if you live near a military installation, you might know that. But if you live in an area where there's no base, and then you go to invest in Vegas, you don't know that northern edge, unless you've gone and done the research. Or if you come here to Joint Base Lewis McChord, you don't know that the eastern edge of Lakewood is cops don't go there alone kind of thing. Like that's how bad it gets outside of a base. I don't know what the dynamic is that makes it happen, but I've been to several bases and I've never seen a place that didn't have that right outside the gate. So, and another example, that's the first example, is maybe how a base does it. But here's another example. Let's look at Cape Coral, Florida. You have canals. So a house on a canal is going to rent for $5,000, and a house on the next street over between the two canals, the streets between the canals, is going to rent for $1,200. Like, you're going to have a variance of $1,000 at least a month based on the street you're on. And if you don't know that there's something there, like having boat access, having canal access, or being across the street from that house, but that's another across the street from the canal, is landlocked in a totally different rent box. You have to know that local area. What is considered premium? What, if you're around Tacoma, there's anything in and associated with McKinley Avenue is a war zone. You don't go there. Like, if you don't know that, you can't just go, okay, I know the rents in that area, and now I'm going to make decisions. Nobody impacts the rents in that area on top of knowing what an average rent is.
Yeah, like even in our Airbnb, like our Airbnb is in an okay neighborhood, not in a great neighborhood, but it's an okay neighborhood. But the thing that you couldn't tell, because Airbnb didn't share the exact address, was that it backs up to a busy road. So it's like, that's going to hurt you. It's in a double yellow line, three lanes on each side. That's going to hurt you when it comes to rent. If people are sensitive to noise at all, that's going to create turnover. And so that's where it's like, I don't understand not being boots on the ground and going and seeing that and experiencing that. Like, that's the thing for me is I want to experience that. So I think, but once you do that and you build that team, you generally understand the area, then you're really primed. I mean, you're in far better position. Those are the investors that don't lose.
Yeah, having that team in place is crucial, especially if it's not you. Like, if you're not the one there doing it. And so the only alternative that I'm comfortable with is the way Millennial Mike did it, where he's like, okay, you've got the team in place and you have my trust. So the property manager isn't going to sell, the agent isn't going to sell things that they have to manage that they don't want to.
Right.
That would have high turnover, that would make them, damage the relationship going forward based on the relationship of the previous investor.
Yeah.
Invest to Wealth. Howdy. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don May. Howdy. Same casino experience. A metal bingo shanty and now a massive facility with restaurants, every kind of gaming and top entertainment. I tell my son 23, this is no coincidence. Yeah, no, exactly.
Exactly.
Brandon, howdy. I love that you're a viewer too. Michelle, in person, I don't know anyone trying. All my friends and family, aside from 2 aunts, are about to spend all that comes in because life is short. Yeah. 2 aunts have rentals in Colombia. One lives off 2 rentals in early retirement due to working for a credit union for 20 years and retired at 48 to 49. That's what we talked about this the last Tacoma FI. My friend married his spouse from Colombia. She's working as a teacher in the United States and buying apartments in Colombia. Her plan is to retire with the pension in Colombia with some rentals. It's a great plan.
It's awesome.
Lisa, Matt, when is your course out? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We're making an announcement early next week on the exact release date. It's going to be soon. Pre-order is still available. And basically the course is, oh shit, I'm a landlord, now what? There's a video on my channel that takes you through the syllabus. But long story short on it is that I realized when I was at the closing table and I was so excited about having the chance to attain financial freedom and financial independence, that I realized that I didn't have any of the things I needed to manage my business. I didn't have leases. I didn't have move-in, move-out checklists. I didn't have any idea, the first thing about being a landlord. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube about how to buy, but there's not really a whole lot of stuff out there on really how to manage the day-to-day of building a business like that. And if you can make it people, processes, and what products you're putting into these places, you can make it very easy to manage and do it with a whole lot less work. I aspire to be as lazy as Dion, but even if I take his 16 and I multiply it by 7, which basically puts me at the number of units that I have, that means I can spend 14 hours a month on my properties. And right now I'm not spending 14 hours a month on my properties. I'm spending closer to 15 hours a week.
How's that going to look when your rehabs are done?
Yeah, and that's the big thing for me is the biggest difference for me is the rehabs. We're doing $600,000 worth of construction projects right now. So my goal is to get it to where, we can do this, 20 hours a month, 25 hours a month. But for the last 2 years and for the next year or two, I don't think we'll get there. So I think the big thing is that's what the course kind of covers, is it covers all the things you need to know when being a landlord, and how to manage your properties, how to manage tenants, how to manage code enforcement, how to manage all of those things that come after you buy.
So $600,000 in rehabs going right now. That's the biggest time sink. And I looking at my receipts. I'm not even going to ask you to take a guess, but here's what I spent on rentals in December.
$248.
$450. So $450, not hundreds of thousands, not thousands, $450. That means this month I'll probably have 1,000 or so.
I wrote $111,000 in checks in December.
And that is a big number, but it comes with big rental income.
Oh my word, it's massive. It's massive. Yeah, it's massive. It's embarrassing.
I'm a FID who obviously has been around on a base, or is living on a base or something, says we finance E1 and up. That's the predatory. You'll see billboards right outside of bases that do that. Like, you have no idea if you're going to re-enlist. You have no idea what your finances are going to look like. We'll give you a bunch of money as a loan at 27% interest. You don't even need a credit score. That's brilliant, Amafid. Thank you for that. It's so true. All-nighter hider, I have very few friends in person that are financially minded too. We are the minority. That's why I recommend Minority Mindset as a channel to listen to. And we're definitely the minority. So Matt, you said, you guessed about 20% of the people, and I think that's high, so close to where I would go. I kind of agree with you. That even know it's a thing.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of them don't think it's possible for them.
Agreed. I think
it's for the other people. The rich people can do that.
Yeah, it's a funnel that goes down. It's a funnel that goes down. And so the number of people that will actually achieve it. It's like, and that's the thing, is usually if I'm having a conversation with a landlord, they've already gotten past that stuff. Now the only question is the juice worth the squeeze? Can they stay? And they can, and that's really why I did the course, was because I saw that a lot of people couldn't stick it, and they couldn't stick it because they didn't really know how to run a business. And it's like, here's how you run a landlording business. Here's how you run all your properties. And if you do that, then they have a very high chance of sticking with it. You did an amazing video on why most landlords get out of the business. It's because they don't raise rents. Well, if they have a process by which they do that, if they have the comms, the communications in place of how to message that, how to have and interact and have that conversation, and then how to manage that relationship moving forward, where it's like, if I raise the rent, it's going to damage our relationship. If you can't lead them if you need them, it's the way it goes.
What I love is, so I'm in the Choose FI group, right? I hardly ever comment because they just kick you out as soon as you talk real estate. Or that stocks might not be your thing, right? Or they delete your comment. Their admins are really quick at doing that. But anytime the rent question comes up, and I don't want to call it virtue signaling because I don't understand the concept well enough to use that as a term, but it's something close to that. My brain says it's close to that. 100 people will jump in. Be a decent human. Don't raise the rent.
Yeah.
Or something similar. I'm like, okay, don't run it like a business. Now, look at every other aspect of any expense that there is until those people don't have a margin, right? You're never going to have expenses in the future that are more than they are now, which doesn't happen in any asset class. And you're right. That was the number one consistent thing across the board of every failed landlord was they didn't raise the rent. And that doesn't mean if area average rents are at 1,000, you need to be at 1,000. It means if area average rents are 1,000 and you're at 600,
right?
And you're sitting there thinking, I better not raise the rent because I might lose the tenant. I hope you lose that tenant.
Yes.
Better the binder strategy and they get you to 800 or 900 with no added expenses. Now you're closer to area average. You're probably going to have a profit. But if you lose the tenant, yes, you have some investment to get it up to any repairs that you have to do. And now you're at the top end of the rents, right?
we got really good at buying undervalued assets and then seeing over the course of 60 or 90 days who are the tenants that are good communicators, pay well, etc. And then we work through a process with them. But we spend in the first 90 days that we acquire a property, we're spending 10, 20, 30, $50,000 on that property. And then if they want to stick and they say, hey, it's a much nicer place now, because I know I'm buying a property based on value because rents were low, but they were artificially low, and it was because the property wasn't properly taken care of by the previous landlord. And then what happens? They end up leaving because the old landlord wouldn't fix anything, but it's because he didn't have any money because he was a good landlord and he didn't raise the rents. Like
that's not a good landlord.
No, that's
right.
That's the perception, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh no, he's a good landlord, he doesn't raise his rents. Yeah, how many things around here are broken that you've asked to have fixed? Oh, I don't know, I've like a dozen things. How many of them are safety issues? I don't know, 2 or 3. Not a good landlord. Not a good landlord.
Exactly. That's like I'm looking at December. I spent $450, right? Because I had 2 phone calls.
Yeah.
One said that the kitchen light, asked me something about the kitchen light, and another one asked something about an exterior light. So exterior light replaced, and then kitchen light replaced and ceiling painted. So the total of that was 400. Those are the only phone calls I had. There are people who will get those calls and go, sure, we'll get to it in 6 months. Right. 5 months, because they don't have the money to go and fix that. The $450 would be more than someone can afford if you're not making money on your rentals.
Right. When we buy those properties, we send out, and that was one of the other things we created for the course, was a letter that we send out introducing ourselves and talking about, give us the list of those things. We're not saying we're going to do all of those things. Like I literally had somebody list, I'd like a new kitchen. Well, so would I. That's not going to happen. But right, we were able to address a bunch of their other issues.
That is one of the questions that I asked that my first agent told me not to. But I always go to the tenants during the inspection if I can and say, look, if you own this place, you were the owner, poof, tomorrow, what would you fix? What's the first thing you'd fix? And it's never something like, I want a new kitchen. I haven't had that one yet. Or I want to pave the driveway. It's a screen door would be really nice so we could leave the door open in the summer. Exactly. Or that ceiling fan squeaks or whatever. It's a couple $100. And now that tenant's like, oh my God, they take care of the place. This is great.
Yeah.
Bo Thornton, howdy, which is actually one of the names of my drill instructors. That's weird. I can remember that, but I don't know what day of the week it is. I see a lot of Airbnb and Vrbo touting double normal rent rates. What's your take, Matt?
I mean, I can tell you that the house that I'm in, it would be about what I paid for 2 weeks. It'd be about that for a month if it were a normal rental. I think that if you buy based on those numbers, you're going to buy wrong. I think if you buy based on the Airbnb number, you'll buy wrong. I think if you buy based on a long-term rental number and having the appropriate amount of margin there, you'll buy right. I think that on the Airbnb side, I know that they've got a pretty fluid process for this place, as I saw. So I think their costs, generally speaking, are down. But cleaning and the effort and the management and the messaging and all of that stuff, I think that Dion says it best when he says, when you do Airbnb, you find a job. And I have no interest in having a job. I don't like the one that I have. I don't want to be in the one that I have. And so from my perspective, I want to reduce that drag. Might I do a couple where I send them off to an Airbnb manager and they do all 100% of the work? I might potentially do that someday. I will not be the one managing and coordinating and quarterbacking. I do that stuff for my long-term rentals because I can create value when we do repairs. I can make that call to say, instead of this $150 fixture, use the $300 fixture, because I'm never going to have to replace that fixture because it has unbreakable glass in it, something like that. So I think you make a mistake if you buy based on Airbnb rates. I think you win when you buy based on long-term rate. And I think that the Airbnb, I think the marginal ones are going to get hurt. I found out that Las Vegas actually requires a license for Airbnbers. I also found out that less than 5% of the Airbnbs in Las Vegas actually have that license.
So, Bo, here's a couple thoughts. I wrote down 3. First is the long-term rental rates. Make sure you're buying that'll work. You might not get the return you need, but at least break even on long-term rental because the municipality might make a change, the HOA might make a change, or something changes where you can't do short-term rentals there. Kind of like certain places in Hawaii where it's like you have to do 90 days or whatever rules they come out with. So you could lose the ability to do short-term rentals. Double the rent rate sounds about right because you have increased vacancies, whereas a long-term lease, I have a 12-month lease. Somebody who has a Verbo for 12 months, their busy season probably gonna be booked every day, can probably charge a premium rent, but there's gonna be a slow time.
Yeah.
You know, when it's 110 degrees in Vegas, ain't that many people there, right? It's like you can have seasonality almost anywhere. So the vacancy is an impact to you able to get double the rents, but sometimes you're not getting any rents. The third thing is that property management. If you're not managing it yourself, it's 35% for the property management, right? So of the double the rent, 35% goes to that. Verbo has rate fees, so they're making money on it too. So the rent that you're collecting, that the person's paying, sounds like it's twice as much, but all the money that Matt's paying for the place he's at, it's not all going to the owner, right? So that's going to the platform that he's on. And then here's the main reason why I don't want to do short-term rentals. So I ran a truck driving school for a decade, right? And hopefully you're familiar with an app called Yelp or a website called Yelp. You can go on, you can review a restaurant, you can review a business. If you run a business and somebody goes on and does a negative review, they go on and they say, I went to the truck driving school and XYZ is the problem, right? Yelp goes, if you pay us $300 a month, we'll put the complaints to the bottom of the list. If you don't pay us at all, we will gray out the good comments and only show the negative ones. So you're on a platform where reviews dictate whether you can make money or not. Right. Short-term rentals live and die off of the reviews. So if you're in an area where there is an aggressive, skilled, unethical investor, they'll rent your property and then do a great review that kills your business. I recently stayed in a Verbo in Fraser Park, California, and that was one of the comments from the owner was, look at this review. This is from a competitor who was in our place. And I looked at every other review was great. This one spelled all kinds of things. I stayed in a place. Nothing that was in that review was associated in any way with how this place looked. That's a risk. Like what someone says about you can create my tenants. There might be a Facebook app where they can go on and complain about whatever, but there isn't a platform where they can go on Zillow to the next person who's looking at one of my rentals and saying, here's why I hated living there, or whatever their reason is. It doesn't exist in long-term rentals. So that's the main thing that's kept me off of making my whole platform dictated based on a couple of paragraphs on a website.
Yeah.
All Nighter Hider puts in the link for the video on Matt's course. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Nighter.
So glad that you're on the channel as a moderator. Thank you, All Nighter. Sully, you've mentioned Hemlane in the past. Would you recommend using their platform while I'm traveling abroad to manage properties? I'd like to take on the 8 properties again upon my return from the trip. So I'm using Hemlane specifically for that reason. I can travel, I can return, I can up the market, to the leasing agents are doing it, or their handyman or my handyman are using their portal. Like all of those options are there. And for 8 properties, it's perfect. I think with my 16, it's great. If I had 30, I'd be right on the cusp of, I don't know, like I might stay there, but since I don't rely heavily on the taxes, I haven't done a cost segregation study. I have one spreadsheet, which I have a couple of emails for the people who have emailed me asking for it. I'm going to get to them and send it out before my Vegas trip, which leaves tomorrow. But it's very simple for me to do my finances. If you're in Matt's situation where you have hundreds of units and 600,000 in repairs going on or in rehabs going on, and you want a better, different back end for taxes, what's the platform you use, Matt? Doorloop. Okay. So since I haven't actually looked into what the finances of Hemlane look like, I just looked at, it was super easy to put my properties on there. I listed the first one on apartments because I was doing Hemlane right around that time of August and retiring in July. So it was a weird month for me. But the second one went on Hemlane. It was super easy, had no problems. When you post it on Hemlane, it puts it on a bunch of platforms, and that some of the platforms move the pictures around. So if you had a property where the picture had to be, the first picture had to be a certain one, maybe go on and move those around until you get that right. But other than that, I had no issues. So that would be my idea. With 8, it's the platform I'm using because I have 7 properties, 16 units. So maybe we're kind of closer depending on how many units you have with 8 properties. Yeah, but if you're much larger and you need better or more in-depth tax stuff,
Yeah, if you're planning on becoming larger, that's the one lesson that I learned. I should have started off with a great platform in the beginning. That was because moving that data, moving that history, moving all that went with that. Oh my word, I'd have paid 3 times over to have all that stuff in one platform and not have to move platforms.
Dapper D, howdy. Do you think having a CDL license is recession depression proof? Resistant, not proof. There could be something that comes out that impacts transportation that we can't think of. So I wouldn't say anything is proof, but resistant, like I still have my CDL. I'll be 80 getting a med card. Like I'll figure out a way to get a med card. I'm always going to have my CDL. I kept it in, I went into law enforcement for 8 years. And when I left law enforcement, it took me 9 days to find a job that doubled my income. 9 days in 2009. During the housing crash, recession, just destruction of the world kind of thing. Then we have a pandemic happen, and there went the monetization of this channel. I'm supposed to say that word. But in 2020, the things that happened, who was moving? Who was working? Now, it sucked. It sucked. Truck drivers were moving, making their money. And in Washington State, people were sitting at home on unemployment, extra unemployment stimulus, making $75,000 a year to sit in their house. So I guess there's sometimes where having CDL might be a detractor. But yes, when things are bad, things move in trucking still.
So supply chains, we need them.
Right. And the last thing I'll say on transportation, over the road driving sucks and no one should do it. So hopefully we go to automated trucks that drive 6 trailers at once from Seattle to Phoenix, whatever happens to get rid of over the road trucking. If you're compensated by the mile, you're not being paid overtime. The employer actually has no idea when you hit 40 hours based on pay. Your downtime is not compensated right. It sucks. No one should do over the road driving. That's my opinion. Local driving pays twice as much. You can get it right out of school. You don't have to go over the road. A lot of truck driving schools are going to tell you have to go over the road because, hey, what's a $1,300 kickback from Swift look like when they hire one of your graduates? Second source of income. Don't do it. Apply with all the local companies and let them be the ones to say no, not the school that you went to. Okay, I'm off of transportation.
Got a few minutes left, my man. 7 minutes.
And then we're going to be bailing out of here in 7 minutes, or you are going to. And then
I'm going to bail in 7. You can say as long as you like.
Because you're on vacation and I'm on a life of vacation. So
it's less the vacation thing and more I can hear all 3 because my kids are up.
That too. There's a question for you that you can wrap up with from James. Howdy, James. 3 students, that's why I think this is for you, in my single family house.
Okay.
One leaves school and moves home and says he is no longer paying his portion. If the 2 don't pay his portion, do you go through the eviction process? All have co-signers. Thoughts? Thank you.
It really depends on your state laws. One of the things that I will do first is I will immediately after him not paying, I will post an eviction notice for him specifically. And then I will take a picture of it posted because he's not longer there. I'll take a picture of it posted and I will send it to him. I will also send him a certified letter with that eviction notice. Again, depending on your state laws, you must know those. But I would send him that as well in the mail to let him know that we're serious. And then I would, when he hasn't responded or he hasn't paid after the 10-day notice to quit in my state, I would then file a court appearance. I would file that court appearance because then he's going to get notified by the court. So I want to make sure that he knows that I am very serious. I'm as serious as a heart attack. And so usually that self-corrects. If it doesn't, then just go to the hearing and get a summary default judgment against him. That's what I would do.
So 2 ways that I would look at it, James. First, did you rent the house on one lease? Right. So all the names are on one lease with one amount. All of them are responsible for the entire amount. So if one leaves, you have to let the ones that are staying know it's their responsibility to find a roommate or pay the whole amount of rent. Right. So that's on them to find that person. If you rent it by the room, each person has their own lease, then yes, that's, you have a lease termination fee. You might do it that way. The other way might be you continue to tabulate the rent that they owe until you rent it, and then that goes after them in small claims court. Or depending on the demand for the room and how much repairs are done, you just sit back and go, they're gone, I'm not going to pursue it, you let it go. It can be either way. You have all of the options there,
Yes.
but a lot of it comes down to what is legal in your area.
100%. Yep. And Dion is a better path. Talking to roommates and saying, hey, if you guys are planning on staying or whatever that looks like, if he had a co-signer too, that person's going to take that very seriously because they get mentioned in that court writ.
Right. And that's, so I know that you go off of the student.
Yeah.
I have a roommate situation where I had co-signers, and I go with, because the co-signers had to have good credit. People with good credit will protect it. There are parents out there in line going, I will pay the rent if Johnny or Susan or whoever, because that's not their names, fails at life and it doesn't pay.
For me, that was very much a Dion thing. So for me, it was a lazy thing where I didn't want to talk to parents. I don't want to have that conversation with them. Well, little Johnny, listen, it's your problem that you handed out participation trophies all of his life. The fact that he can't get along with his roommates is his problem, and I'm not making it my problem. So he needs to either figure it out or they're going to jettison the pot. So figure it out. Because I had one conversation with a mom, and I was like, yeah, we're not doing this. Her daughter's boyfriend set fire to something in my basement, and it caused $30,000 of damage because he did it in the room where the boiler and the electric panel was. And that's still to this day the only insurance claim I ever made. And she was like, well, you know, I mean, we'd really like to see the girls back in the house as quickly as possible. And I was like, hey, listen, your daughter's people picker is broken. She picks guys that are arsonists and that she likes to lead along. So that's not a me problem, that's a you problem. So I will do my best to finish the unit so you can continue not parenting well. Yeah, they didn't like that, but I don't care.
Sometimes your tenants having a bad people picker is a great thing.
It's true. Well, it does certainly mean they stay.
Because, you know, have a kid, that'll help the relationship. Buy a car, that'll help the relationship.
Okay.
Have to stay there, that'll help the relationship. Okay, last question, and then you can bail, because we got 3 minutes for you to get through this. And this is a good one for you too, because it's not something I've had to deal with.
Okay.
Lisa, what about radon in homes? I was looking at a property with a radon mitigation system, decided against the home because of this. Is that a risk or normal for older homes, specific areas?
So yes, so for those of you who don't know, radon is a gas. It's proven to be a gas that is a carcinogen. It typically comes out of rock, and being in the granite state, we have a significant radon problem. So here's what I will tell you. Radon, if it's not handled, it is a risk. It is a risk over time. What I would tell you is that if it's in your water, you can go to the nth degree and actually do something called a bubbler, which is between a $4,000 and a $5,000 fix. If you have it and it's purely airborne, you can actually, they would drill a hole in the foundation. It leaves the place for the radon gas to escape. You actually put an impeller in that system, and it actually will pull the radon gas out of the foundation, underneath the foundation. It will pull it out, and then it will actually push it outside your building. And then you have considerably mitigated your radon risk. So yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's dangerous over time. If it's air, you can get that system. That's between $1,200 and $1,500 installed to address it if it's an air issue. And if it's a water issue, it's about a $4,000 to $5,000 issue to fix, and then you're actually good to go. Managing those systems, watching them, making sure they're still performing, but that will actually address any of the needs that you have from a radon perspective.
So the question of is that a risk comes down to add that to your expenses or your cost to acquire to see if it still gets you the yield that you want. That's the risk, because it can be mitigated. Just like any other problem, you know, building needs a roof. Okay, if I put a roof on it, how much would that cost me? Will that still give me the yield I'm looking for? Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you taking your time out of your vacation. I will. Hasta mañana. I will see
you tomorrow, man. Bye, guys. Right. Take care. Thank you.
See you, Matt. And now we watch the viewers go down by like half because Matt's not here, and that's who everybody was actually here to see, which I totally understand. Howdy, Angie. Hope you're doing well. Buddies, howdy, and you say hi to Lumberjack just before he leaves. What would be your best tip to purchase my first commercial-sized residential property? That is a question that I will make sure Matt gets. And then he'll talk about it on his live, which I think he's still doing Sunday. He might be. He should be, because I think we're going to do it together. I think I'll be hanging out with him on his live on Sunday. And I haven't done residential. The biggest reason for me is lending. So depending on the type of residential you're looking for, lending is what would stop me. But I want to see what Matt says about that. I am going up to 8 units because Convoy Home Loans has fixed rate debt on up to 8 units. But fixed rate debt's the only way that I will invest. Mac, howdy. I was curious what price range you look for per square foot for LVP flooring, and what's the most you've spent on an entire renovation for a duplex since you look for turnkey? That's a great question. Thank you. $2 to $3 per square foot, not including installation. But I don't go to Lowe's or Home Depot. I think their product is crap. The one benefit to going to them is they usually have the same product years later if you ever need to do something. But I always buy an extra box or two to have it laying around to fix repairs if I need to. Find a local floor trader in your area. To me, it's Tacoma Floor Trader. That's where I go to get mine. They usually have what is called a remnant, right? So if you think remnant, you think carpet. Oh, they've got a little bit of carpet. No, they have remnant. They have 17 pallets of this flooring, and you need like half a pallet for a duplex, right? Maybe a pallet for a duplex, for the whole duplex. I have done flooring on units. I think the biggest rehab was the first house hack. I moved into a unit where the tenant had freaked out before they left, and I learned how to do drywall, but it took me like a month to do 72 drywall patch repairs in the walls. So I don't know what the actual expense was because it was like $30 worth of drywall. It was like 2 things. And then I watched a bunch of iHandy to learn how to do drywall repair. Don't go there. But the most I've spent on a rehab. So I put a roof on the fourplex. So that would be an expense that was like $15,000 when it's all told and done, because it's weird angled fourplex with a pitch and several different roofs and 4 skylights and like all the flashing and everything. So it was the most expensive roof. The other one, the roof I did was like $7,900. So it was a huge difference. What's the most I've spent? The least I've spent was my triplex. I spent $200 the first year I owned it. That's crazy. That was even asking tenants, what would you fix? It's just really well taken care of. So there was, let me see, flooring, paint, add a wall, because there was a den, which had a closet, a source of heat, a source of power, and an exterior door. So I added a wall with an interior door. Now it's 3-bedroom. Permitted. I think that was $7,000 when I was done. Yeah, that was the first one where I hired a painter too. Normally I just do that stuff myself. You can go paint a day and save $1,500, but it's $1,500 to have a painter do it right. And it looks better. And I'm not investing to build a job for myself. I've gone and done small things. So 7,000 is the most I've spent. Yeah. And that was because the flooring is the most expensive. How many square feet was it? It was, I don't even remember. I think it's 1,100 each side. So 2,200 square feet. So that was the biggest expense, was the flooring. Yeah. But that wasn't at the same place that needed the roof. Like those were different places. No, the roof was the biggest expense because that was 15 grand. And then what did I spend else on the fourplex? That there was deck repair. I had to fix something else. There was something small. But no, I like to buy, the word turnkey is kind of weird. I don't use turnkey companies. Turnkey company means upcharge, potential ripoff, right? Google, turnkey companies that sold vacant lots. But turnkey to me means rent ready or already occupied properties that I purchased from the MLS, right? That to me would be turnkey. So make sure I'm, using the term right there based on what your definition of it is. Justin Williams, that's how it is down in Norfolk, Virginia, off Military Highway. Yep, it sucks. John, Texas. Howdy. If a deal falls through, but the property stays on the market, how long would you wait before reaching back out to the seller to negotiate again? It depends on why it fell through. Did you pull out for something the seller wouldn't negotiate on? If that's true, a week later, I might reach out and say, hey, it's not selling. Are we able to talk now? Yeah, so why did the property fall through? That would be the main determiner on how much time would have to pass before negotiating again. If your negotiation didn't work and you backed out and time is passing, a week or two, I always still reach out to the seller, because half my portfolio I got doing this strategy. I say, I want to be in second position if your sale doesn't go through. So if somebody else makes the offer, right, and then it sells, it's gone. It's off your radar, it's off the MLS. But if they back out, then the seller might also be inclined to go, okay, so now maybe I'll take your negotiation, your price, or whatever that I wouldn't agree to the first time. And that's happened. They accept someone else's offer, and either the inspection or that person drags the timeline or whatever, they back out or it falls through. They have sunk cost theory with you. Like, they don't have to wait for the next thing to come in. They already have a known with you that they can reach out to and say, here's the small change we want to your offer, and see if it's worth it. So not only how long would you wait before negotiating again, but making sure that they're aware you want to be in second position with your offer in case someone else comes in with a better one that falls through. I'm a fid. The first 50 episodes of Choose FI are great. After that, it's all rehash now. I still watch the show. I still watch the episodes of Choose FI. I have trouble with the community, the admins that they have running the community. There's no one right way to do this. Mine's not the right way. Mine's the right way for me. It might be the right way for one or two of you or some of you, right? But it's not the right way for everybody. Some part of my strategy, maybe focusing on saving half your income for house hack and half your income for paying off high interest or adjustable rate debt, might apply to somebody who wants to invest in stocks also, right? Like, it can be a totally different way. But in that community, it is the 4% rule. It is retirement accounts. It is frugality, and there's all these things that I just don't use and don't want to apply to me in any way. And the admins will pounce on you. So it's not so much the show as the social media aspect that kills me. Recently, they did an episode with Dave Ramsey comparing this is what they do, this is what Dave Ramsey does. And I kind of like to do the same thing. I will never come out and go, Dave Ramsey's stupid, right? Like, his information helps a ton of people get out of bad debt, stop creating more bad debt, and possibly have a better retirement at a normal, air quotes, for those people just listening, retirement age. It's great information. First two steps, last step, perfect. I think apply to everybody. It's the stuff in the middle where I go, that's one way. Here's another. Doesn't mean one's right or wrong. And that's what the admins seem to want, is there's a right way and then everything else is wrong. REI Stoners, howdy, good morning. Hope you're enjoying the week that we've had. It's not too warm, but it's been kind of sunny. I actually did a video on the slides the other day, but there were too many kids on the slides, so I actually used the slides. TBS 24, howdy. Agree with you to 100%. Now, would you raise the rent during the Los Angeles moratorium where you can't evict for payment? I would use the binder strategy as long as you are in compliance with the rent cap that your, what do you call it? Rent control, that thing that forces landlords to raise the rent every year. Don't break the law there. Know the law. Know that if it applies to your single family house or not. Know that it applies to your house act, small multifamily or not. Like, know your local laws. Sometimes rent control doesn't apply in an area where there is rent control based on your situation. But if you use the binder strategy, and let's say, I'm going to use hypothetical numbers here because this is what I've heard, that you can't raise the rent more than 5% above inflation with a cap of 10%. I believe that's California's law. I don't live there. I don't invest there. So Google it. Talk to an attorney before you actually do this there. But if you're in LA and you have a 10% max, right, and they're paying $2,000 in rent, that means you can go to $2,200 legally. If everything I said was true, verify it first. Never trust a random guy on YouTube. Thank you, Justpreet. So if you talk to the tenant and you say, look, there's, rents in the area have really gone up. If you moved out, I'd be able to rent this place for 2,800 or whatever. I'm not saying I'm going to raise it to 2,800. I mean, what do you think would be fair? What do you think is fair with current rents being 2,800 and you're at 2,000? Maybe they know rent control and they say, well, you can't go above 2,200 if I stay. You're right. So maybe they offer 100, 150. So they're not getting the full max. They're getting a bit of a deal better than what you could just legally do. But they chose it. They contributed to the conversation of their rent increase. The odds of that person not paying because there's an eviction moratorium going on are lower than somebody who just got a rent increase. When they're like, I don't like the landlord anyway. Now I don't have to pay. And he raised my rent. So now I can justify it. I can be the victim on social media and have the conversation. Look, rents are, this much more than what I could even legally raise it to. What do you think is fair? What do you think we should do here? Let me know how it goes. I've never heard of a tenant asking for the rent to go down, but that's entirely possible. If you're at 2,000 and area average rents are 1,500, and you talk to your tenant, they would be stupid to ask you to raise the rent. They should say, well, it's 1,500 is the normal, and you don't have to fix anything, and I already live here, so we should lower the rent, right? That would be the right thing for the tenant to do. I am half tempted to make the video on this is how you lower your rent. Because if you're in an area where the average is below what your rent is at, you should be talking to your owner about your landlord, not your owner, your property owner, about how to get your rents down. It works both ways. So the binder strategy is kind of pointless if you are at area average rents. You're not going to show a tenant, look, you're paying 2,000, everyone else around here is paying 2,000. What do you think is fair? Why even have that conversation, right? But if they're paying 2,000 and rents are 2,800, getting that person closer to 2,200 is more likely to happen if that conversation happens than if you just raised it. Even if you just raised it half, 100, right? The tenant can still mentally go, there was an increase during a moratorium. My landlord is an idiot. I'm not going to pay. Include them in the conversation. That would be my suggestion. So thank you, TVS. That was a great question. Moy, howdy. When it comes to Thumbtack for a balcony rehab in San Diego, what do you think? Hire someone with only a handful of reviews for 10,000, or go with a company I Googled with a bid of 2,400. So handful of reviews, what were the reviews? Are they licensed? Do they have, what do they call it? Above 8-foot insurance? Go to the state website and make sure that they have the elevated insurance or whatever it's called. I'm gonna have to Google that because my memory doesn't remember it now. I remember anytime I hire an arborist or a roofing company, you go to the state website to make sure they have the proper insurance in place and not just general contractor insurance, because that doesn't handle people that are more than 8 feet off the ground. When I did my last roof, I got quotes. The first roof was 7,900 to 32,000. Reviews aren't as important to me as $20,000 or whatever the gap there was, right? It's like 15,000 or whatever. But you got the reviews. There's a handful of reviews might be kind of a red flag. How long have they been in business? Are they a legitimate business? And do they have their insurances in place? And you only have 2 quotes on something that's going to cost you at least $10,000, maybe 4 or 5 quotes. But if they're on Thumbtack and they only have a handful of reviews, I would feel more comfortable than if I just Googled them and found Yelp with a handful of reviews. Thumbtack usually, not always, but usually means they're a little more sensitive to their reviews and more. I've had really good luck with. I used a fence guy who had no reviews yet, but he was on Thumbtack, and I had no problems with it. I should probably remember his name and give him a plug, but it's been 5 years. That ain't gonna happen. So, yeah, more quotes, and then show the quotes to each other. Show the $10,000 quote to the $24,000 contractor, and ask him why do you think that there's such a disparity here? And that person might go, well, that's because this is the product they're using. It's going to fail you in 1 year. And here's what I'm using. It's going to last 20. They might have a justifiable reason that they'll be the first one to point out, right? So that's kind of like how I do lenders. I let the lenders look at each other's offers to tell me, well, this person's charging you, this one has a better interest rate, but their buy down cost is twice what ours is. And once you do our buy down at half the cost of theirs, our rate's better. Like they'll point that kind of stuff out that we might not even know to look for. So here we go. And you answer it in the next question. The third bid is another company also for 10,000, but will include a change order because of need to remove the floor to see how much water damage there is. That That's closer to what I would do. Give me a written estimate, know your local laws, because a change order has to happen in my state. If an estimate goes over 10% of the projected cost of the original estimate, there has to be a change order. So there has to be a second in writing. Here's what your cost change is going to be. They can't just do the job and say, yeah, there was another $7,000 in stuff that we didn't know about. So you can decide if you want to continue or not at that point. So it sounds like you're doing the right thing, get more offers, but I would share those offers with each of them and see what they all have to say about the other. Howdy the Yoder, who took a message back to make me lose sleep in my afternoon nap that's coming in a bit. All-nighter hider. Post names and I'll see if I know any of them. There you go, because you're in the same area. There you go. CJ Underwood. Howdy. Love the midday live streams. Good. If you listen to it on like 6 times speed, if that ever became an option, we could fit it all in the lunch period. All-nighter hider. Keith Okonski is a great contractor in South Dakota, as is Clem's Construction. I have worked with both. San Diego, not South Dakota. Nice. Clint, San Diego, South Dakota. Howdy, Clint. As Matt might remember, I walked every unit of a prospective building and asked the tenants, what would you fix as an owner? The answers were ranked 1, get rid of the bed bugs. There you go. 2, get rid of the cockroaches. 3, fix the windows that won't close. Ask in the middle of a snowstorm. Evict the folks with mental health issues who are asking me when I go outside. Nice. That's a pretty good list of things that let you know the time and energy and effort it would take to resolve the things that you could handle. If you added that to your cost to acquire, is it still a good deal? I can get to a couple more questions before we wrap up here in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. JMC, howdy. All-nighter hider to JMC. I hear most of the time 10 mortgages, but I've also heard it depends on your relationship with the bank and if they're comfortable lending more. I missed a question from here. Okay, JMC. Hey, Dion and Matt, because this must have been just before you left. I've been watching both of your channels and it's eye-opener. Just a quick question. What is the limit of mortgages someone can take out before banks start being frustrating? So there's 2 versions of the question. The first one is, when does your debt to income ratio become a problem? And this is the most common question that I get, and I break people's brains with how simple the answer is. So some people will go, so I have a salary and I make $60,000 a year, so I can qualify for a home, and I bought a $250,000 duplex and I'm living in it. And next year I want to buy another one, but now my $60,000 doesn't really qualify me to buy another duplex or another single family house or whatever the structure is. My salary is the limit, right? And you can't go out and you could try, you could double your income. You might be get a 15% raise if you changed companies or something. So you can try to make more money, right? The first 2 years are the hardest with lending institutions. There are some now that will look at the rental income on properties and your debt to income ratio, but it's harder to find them. But as a general rule, what I like to do is start with large institutions like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, because they have standard criteria that you can then take to other lenders and say, hey, can you beat this? And then go back and see if they can beat it. So you're comparing the lenders to each other, starting with the strictest criteria to the more not strict criteria. I want to use the word liberal, but it applies to too many weird things now. So after you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, so you're talking how many mortgages can you get before banks start becoming frustrating? You're probably not getting 10 mortgages in the first year. You might get 1 or 2 and then 1 or 2 in the second year. But by the start of the third year, once you have rental income on tax returns, your debt to income ratio and your salary and your work history become almost irrelevant. Like a DSCR loan, they're going to look at your credit score and they're going to look at the income of the property, even on commercial or residential loans in your name. The lenders will go, your credit score qualifies you. The rents across your portfolio, so not just on the one you're buying, but the ones that you own, 75% of those rents have to cover the debt, plus like 10%. So it's like if the debt was $1,000, they want your rents to be 75% of your rents to be $1,100, right? So there's a little gap there. They want it to be a little bit more than the actual payment itself, including the property that you're buying. So if you're buying a cash flowing rental, 75% of those rents should cover the mortgage on the property that you're purchasing. So my lenders have literally told me you can buy anything you want, anything. that you've saved a down payment for. So you have to have the down payment, closing costs, reserves, money for immediate repairs, all that kind of stuff, still just like a regular loan, but there's no limit on what they'll lend on based on anything to do with my debt to income ratio, my salary, or anything like that, especially now they don't have a salary. 6 months now. 6 months is beautiful. Sorry, throw off the emperor's groove. Wear the groove. So there's one other criteria that they might require, and this is that the majority, which means 51% of your rentals, have to have 3 months remaining on the lease. So this makes me not want to do ever month-to-month leases, and short-term leases. They're starting to look at comps compared to that versus the 3-month rule, but for the last 5 years, it's been they want 3 months. So short-term rentals really didn't help. But so I like 1-year leases, so you're likely to have more than 3 months remaining on leases when they check it. So that's the first part of the question. The second part is, when do banks say you have too many in your own name? The Fannie and Freddie backed loans only let you have 10 in your name per person. So if you're married and you do each mortgage yourselves, you can have 20. Up until 2015-16, it was 4. After the 2008 housing crash, the Fannie Freddie rules changed, and they said you can have 4 loans in your name. So like Matt was ready to buy, couldn't use that kind of lending, had to go to DSCR, asset-based, or possibly seller financed options, right? But around 2016, they said 4 is cool, but the real estate is stabilized now, so you can go back to 10. So I got to 4, thought banks know what they're talking about, didn't realize it was just some arbitrary rule from Fannie and Freddie, and I paid off a mortgage, which was one of the bigger financial mistakes that I've made. Instead of paying off that mortgage, I'd be making more money had I purchased another property than if I paid off that mortgage. And the amount of $121,000 what I funneled into paying off that mortgage over a little over a year after the income snowball kicked in. Sounds like a lot of money, but once the income snowball kicks in, that's actually not that much money. It comes really fast. If you think a little over a year is really fast, to me, that's freaking speeding, right? Like to have $100,000, I just think that's something somebody saves over a 30-year career. Right now, it's just like, that's what came in the account in the last couple of months. Let's get all of you to the point where you have that problem. And then they changed and interest rates went down. So I started working, and my goal was, I think I'll get to 10 mortgages in my name. And I got to 6 mortgages with 1 house paid off. So 7 properties, 6 mortgages. And the cash flow is 4 times what it takes me to live my life. So I quit working, and I might add a property. I might not. We will see. And I see that Ash, howdy Ash, thank you for being a member. Hi Dion, do you think umbrella insurance is worth it? Also, as a first-time homebuyer, are there videos or books you could recommend to help me draft a strong contract? So videos or books on a contract, no, but sources of a contract, yes. So BiggerPockets Pro has, you have to be a member for over, I think, 3 months, or have more than a 3-month membership to have a lease that was made by an attorney for each state. Apartments.com, Zillow, some of them have leases that you can get. Your state might have a landlord tenant resource page where you can go to that site. That's where I got my lease. And for some reason, it's not there now, but it was there like 7 years ago. Took a copy of the lease, but here's what I would suggest to the lease that you choose. Find an attorney in your area that has a good reputation, that works real estate and primarily evictions, and go to them and say, first, I want to retain you. Right, it's going to be $1,000 or $1,500 to retain them for future services that you might ever have. And then you ask them, here's my contract that I'm going to use. You know the local court system. You interact in this court system. You've done evictions here. Is there any verbiage, a paragraph or 2, that I can add to my contract that will make your job easier if we ever end up in court with an eviction? This is something I learned from my brother, who is really smart. He retired at 50 with 10 paid off rentals. Calls me an idiot because I use mortgages, but I love him. He actually told me to do this. This is something he suggests. Go to his attorney, get a couple of paragraphs that you put in your lease that makes their job easier if you ever go through an eviction. So I sat back. I've never actually gone through an eviction. I've helped a couple of friends, especially in the last year, for some reason, go through evictions with their rentals, but I haven't done it. But I rest very comfortably knowing, so I have a lease that my attorney looked at, didn't have any problems with, and works in the counties that I invest in. Added their little blurb that they thought, okay, this would make the lease stronger if we ever have to go to court. And I said back, so I'm prepared. I have an attorney retained. So if you ever do anything like serve an eviction paper or everything, it takes money out of that retainer. And then when it's 0, then you're going to pay more toward the attorney and find out what they charge. But but the mental piece that comes from, I have the verbiage from the attorney. I have their attorney already retained. So it's going to be, it's like a lot of those people go, I don't want a 10 o'clock call with a plumbing problem because I'm going to have to go plunge a toilet, right? That doesn't happen. You get a 10 o'clock call, you call a 24-hour emergency plumber or your handyman to go handle the issue, right? So if you knew what is something my handyman can handle, what's in their purview, like they can't go change something in an electric panel, right? But they can go replace a fan or something, right? So they can do the simple things. Have you Googled in your area 3 or 4 companies that have 24-hour plumbing emergency service? Called them to find out what their rates are and their response time. Wrote down their numbers or saved them in your phone so that, you know, if you get a 10 o'clock call, you call one and say, hey, are you available? Your prices were good. I see you have 24-hour. Oh, your service tech is busy tonight. I'm sorry. Call the next one. Having that lined up isn't like life-changing important because yes, it would just take a Google search to do it that time of night, right? But look at the mental piece that comes from, if I have, and I have in 12 years, one time a 10 o'clock at night phone call of our system seems backed up, called the handyman, couldn't resolve it. Went to the emergency phone contact that I had a couple of. Their person was out there within about an hour and a half and resolved it. And it was like $280 to the plumber guy that's fixed it, and $150 to the handyman guy who didn't fix anything, but 10 o'clock at night went out to the site to assess whether they could or not. And I want to make sure that that is an option in the future. So I'm definitely compensating them for more than the 20 minutes they were actually there to go, yep, I can't fix this, right? They got up, they went there, they talked with the tenant, they found out the issue, they told me that's worth $150 to me at least, if not more, right? And I think the guy said, I don't know, $100 sounds good. I sent 150. So always try to tip the handyman because you want that relationship, gives you the freedom that this portfolio is going to give you. Same thing with your contract. Know the attorney that you're going to deal with, make sure they're comfortable with what's in there. And then you sit back and you go, yeah, well, I'm probably never going to have an eviction. But if I do, it's a couple of phone calls and an email. And there was more to your question here. Is umbrella insurance worth it? So I talk about this every now and then. There's no asset protection from having something like an LLC unless you have partners, right? So I am solely based on insurance for what you would call legal asset protection. I also use leverage as asset protection. The bank is in first position. And then the third thing, the most important thing, is to actually fix things. Tenant calls with a complaint, get it fixed quick, especially if it's a safety issue. If it's something like the cabinet squeaks when you open it or something, yeah, that's going to be fixed the next time there's an actual call to the house, unless you have the freedom to send somebody now to take care of it. But insurance, so homeowners insurance on each property. I probably should have went for umbrella policy when I had 3 properties. I got it when I was at 4. It was $550 a year for $2 million in coverage. So it's not like it costs you thousands of dollars a month to have the protection of an umbrella policy. The company that gives you your umbrella policy might have a couple of criteria. All of your insurance has to go through the same company. So for me, that was auto and property, something else at the time. It was like motorcycle or whatever, all had to be tied together to the same one. And the auto policy requirements were more than what the state minimums were. I usually have, I pay cash for cars. I don't want to pay more insurance than I have to. So I have like the uninsured motorist, the basic, whatever the state requires and everything. Well, that wouldn't satisfy the umbrella policy's needs. So I had to increase, like double the policy requirements on my auto, which was something like $6 a year. Like it was this tiny amount to have way better coverage, and it made the umbrella policy company provider happy. So find out all of that when you call. Get quotes, call different ones, call a couple of the big ones, Allstate, Farmers, whatever, but call a broker and find out if they can beat it. I ended up going through like 3 different brokers until I found this assistant at a place that wasn't even a broker yet. And she's gotten all my insurance stuff processed. She might be a broker now, but when we started, she was like the front desk person, but just responsive and knew what my questions were. I don't know what happened. So if you're in my area, reach out, I'll connect you with her. She's awesome. But at 4 properties, I got the umbrella policy. So that's, if anything exceeds the $300,000 in injury or personal that's covered on each property, then the $2 million policy kicks in. That was a great question. Make sure I'm not missing anything else in there. First time homebuyer, are there videos or books you can recommend on help drive? Just no, it wasn't that. It was the other suggestion that I made. So thank you for the super chat, Ash. I appreciate it. And hopefully maybe I'll see you either live or watch the replay of the members only live stream today at 4, where we look at different markets. Get through my chat here. Rick Ramirez. I'm a truck driver and started a few months before the country closing. I was very grateful to be working and not sitting at home. That's the way a lot of people looked at it, but a lot of people were also sitting at home making maybe not as much as a truck driver, but $70,000, $75,000 a year to sit at home wasn't a small amount. We're about through these. Make sure I'm not missing any here. All-nighter hider. Drywall is all in the wrist and the angle of the knife drag. That's my bread and butter. So I don't want to say I got good at it, but I got comfortable with it to where by the time I was done, I went through and redid the first 5 repairs that I did out of those. It was 72 when I was done. But by the time I was done, I got good enough at, blending the paint and hiding the mud and all that kind of stuff. I went back and redid the first 5 because they looked like somebody punched a hole and then they goobered over it, right? It was not good the first couple. But I learned enough to know basically what's a fair estimate for a drywall repair. How long is it going to take? What's involved? If you go, look, it's just a little tiny hole and fix that hole. It's going to be like 20 or 30 bucks. No. Travel time to get there. The materials, that's your materials is 20 bucks too, just for that little piece. Because you can't go buy this little tiny piece of drywall. You're buying a sheet like this, but then you're paying for the skill. Once it's done, did they orange peel it into the texture the right way? Does it look the same? Is it uniform? All that. And I like to watch to see if they did it the way I did with the backboard and that kind of stuff. We should probably make that video too. And maybe all-nighter hider, you and me can make a video together on how you use a backboard to put in drywall. Buddies, thank you. Keith, howdy. Yeah, nice. Howdy, Shred. JMC, what kind of software apps do you use to manage your properties? What are some recommendations? So I'm using Hemlane. I've been using it since about August. They have 3 tiers. You can get a discount, 20% off here for they're kind of an affiliate of mine. I'm an affiliate of theirs, however that works. Where you can get 20% off your first year if you say Dion, D-I-O-N, spell it right, in there. And I'm using that mostly to advertise rentals. The new tenants that are coming on are collecting rents. I'm not putting old tenants on the new system. I have a tenant with a flip phone that doesn't have an email, right? So I'm not saying, hey, you need to go learn how to interwebs work. She sends me an envelope full of checks. It's 6 checks at once for the next 6 months. Leave it simple if it's already in place, like no reason to change what's existing. But the new tenant who found it on how Hemlane advertised it goes to the portal. This is how you reach out to me with a request that the handyman is also going to see. Threshold up to $500. Handyman knows they can handle it and then bill me. Anything above that, they have to get permission, and I get to see all of those correspondence. There's another version where you can use like an Angie List form through Hemlane to get their handyman out there. And then there's a third tier that I'm going to use if I'm, when I'm in another country, I'll step up for a short period of time for the months that I'm there, on where they can actually have leasing agents go out and sign a lease if I have a tenant turnover in that period of time. I use Thumbtack, the Thumbtack app, to find contractors, get quotes, read reviews. I talked about that a little bit earlier. The contractors that are on there know that their reputation matters and that their reviews matter. So I've had really good response time, communication, because they know I'm going to leave a review at the end of the project, whatever project they're handling. Have I told you about my memory issues? But I don't use product, things like Stessa. I don't use QuickBooks. I don't use, my entire business is very simple, and it is, but you can't see it from here, but I'd give you motion sickness if I showed you what it looks like over there. So let's see if I can see it here. The top of the shelf right there, you see those leather books. That's the actual, my entire business fits in that leather book, the small one. Each property gets 10 pages. The 10 pages say what the insurance is, what the mortgage is, who currently has the mortgage, when the washer, or not do washer and dryers, but when the appliances were replaced. It shows you those kind of things. All in that book, so I can transport it with me, or I can call somebody and say, hey, go find the book, look up this property and tell me what the codes are for the master codes to the locks, because I need to change the codes because previous tenants have moved, or whatever the thing is. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Mine is very simple, like it had to be, because I am not investing to create another job. I am investing to create freedom, which comes from simplicity for me. Especially with some memory issues. I've got some head trauma, so my memory's not great. And I don't mean like the parent that goes, oh no, the kids are at soccer, I better go pick them up, I'm a half hour late. I'm the person that goes, holy crap, I think I have kids and they're in their 20s. Like that's the kind of memory that I have. So hopefully that helps. Keep it simple. I'm having good luck with Hemline, so I'm recommending it. Thumbtack, I recommend. I use the Chandler David Smith app for calculating yield. So CDS, Chandler David Smith, is a YouTube content creator. Good channel, good information, but he made an app that's free, CDS rental calculator app. So you can put in the mortgage, the rate, the percent down, the closing cost, like you can put in everything, utilities, property management, whatever your thing is, put in the expenses, and it'll calculate the yield for you. And show you your amortization schedule. So it's kind of nice to have it all in one place. If you have BiggerPockets Pro, their calculation system is better, more streamlined, looks more intuitive. If you have a partner you need to impress with the property, spouse or business partner, you can just go, look, this is what it looks like. That's the way to go. But if it's just you, or you and your spouse, and you're looking at numbers together, and you pull up the CDS rental calculator app, it's super easy to use, and super easy is very important for me. Adam Calhoun. Hey, Dion, just wanted to help the algorithm. Always appreciate, enjoy your content. I appreciate that very much. Make sure that, and thank you for letting me know that there's not a question there that I'm missing. Esther, thank you for coming in, and I have your email. I have your spreadsheet ready for the members only live this afternoon at 4. It's going to be at 4 p.m. A little late to join. How do we get notification for Zoom live today? So what's going to happen is I'm going to create the Zoom. I'm going to create the YouTube video that will come out at 4. So in like an hour or two after we close down the stream, I'm going to have that up so you'll be able to see it, turn on notifications to show up. The first comment, because this only shows up for members, the first comment is going to be a link to the Zoom, which I will probably make like 10 minutes before actual 4 o'clock. So I won't make that now. I'm not that tech savvy, but like 10 minutes before I'll make the Zoom, put the link in the comments. So then you click on it and then we'll start the Zoom, and then we'll start the YouTube video. So everybody, you don't have to join Zoom if you're a member, but it's better, I think, to have that face-to-face interaction and ask questions and show me, share screen, show me what your agent sent you so we can look at your market and look at this spreadsheet to see if it's something that you can use. How do we join the group? So Adam, thank you for following up with the question, because that's my not fear, my concern is a super chat comes in, like, and if it's $1 or $20, that's real money, and I appreciate each one. Like that's coming out of your pocket. That's huge to me. That's not a like button. That's not you took time to write a comment. That's you're like, I'm going to send currency to you, so it's huge. And so what my fear is, it's a fear. You do a super chat, but they're small because they only let you put in so many words, right? And so you do the super chat and then you send a question, and I see the super chat and I miss the question. Like, I don't want somebody to have the emotional experience of I super chatted and then I didn't get my answer because I didn't see the question. Kind of like there was a live stream about 2 weeks ago, and I was wrapping it up, and I like did the outro, clicked the button, and then a super chat came in. Like as I was clicking, I felt horrible because I was like, that person did that as I closed it. So I tried typing an answer, and I'm gonna have to go back and find that. I'm probably gonna do a video answering that question at the as a separate video. Yeah. So how do you become, I almost not answer your question. This is me. So it's sometimes people are having problems being with the device that they're on. So if you close down the chat, there might be a little button that says join. If it doesn't, you might have to switch to a laptop and go to the channel and find the membership thing and hit join. And so right now, what the memberships is getting is every now and then we're doing polls to find out different things. But at least twice a month, we're doing Friday members only lives where we have a Zoom. You're welcome to come in the Zoom. You don't have to. You could just watch on YouTube and comment on YouTube. But sometimes I miss a comment for a bit because I also have Zoom going up with comments. And we do different things. We look at emails from my agents. We looked at, dividend day area. We look at, I want to do one on a couple of my friends have done the binder strategy. Well, here's a video coming out with two of my friends, Michelle and Dan. Both did the binder strategy and then asked the tenant to lower the rent from what the tenant suggested. So I want to get into their mindset of the tenant said, hey, let's go to this. This sounds fair. And both of them said, that does sound fair. But I think, I don't know if would I feel greedy or did I want to have less turnover? What was the mindset of, oh, let's do this much. How's that? Imagine how happy the tenant is. When they suggested a rent increase and the owner said, oh, that sounds great. I totally think that's fair. We're going to go lower than that though. We're going to be doing that with members to get into some of the stuff that might not matter to the random person. Because right now there's probably somebody who clicked on this because they saw financial freedom. That sounds cool. And they click on it and they hear some guy talking about real estate. Why is real estate financial freedom? Like if you're at that point, seeing a video where somebody talks about their tenant asking for their rent to go higher than what you're comfortable with isn't something they're going to watch. Let's see if there's any questions that you guys have, make sure you get them in the last 4 minutes before we finish up here. Make sure I'm not missing any of these. I'm only thinking hider and then hider hearing. Yeah, it's usually 10. Yep. So that was one of the questions. Michelle, yes, we're all here for Matt. That's what you said the other day when you came in, you thought it was going to be Matt. So JLOFLIX. JLo Flex. Are you a JLo fan? Forgive me if you've answered this. I'm always happy to answer questions more than once. That does two things. One, shows consistency. I like to go back and watch my interview with BiggerPockets or One Rental at a Time a year before the BiggerPockets interview and listen to what I said and realize it's what I'm putting in videos now. Like that, this is consistent across the board. Doesn't matter what's happening with interest rates, prices, or anything like that. This is how you reach financial freedom. So I like to hear questions asked more than once, when possible. But this one sounds like it's for Matt. Have you checked out the Boxabi warehouse just outside of Vegas? While you're there, I understand that you can go in for a tour with a golf court tour. I will find out and ask him on Sunday. There we go. I will find it and I will be there. So I'll find out what that is. Oscar. In LA County or Los Angeles, rent control only applies to 2 units on a property, just not apply to single family. So that's what I mean. Exactly. Know your local laws. I have a friend who bought in North Bend, Oregon. I think that was Bend, Oregon, North Bend, Washington, Bend, Oregon. Small multifamily doesn't apply because owner occupied. Like know your laws. Yeah, so Scott Coleman, never trust a random guy on YouTube, minority mindset, just Jaspreet Singh saying, it is. He says it all the time. And he points at himself, never trust a random guy on YouTube. I love it. And then he gives advice. But I think he does what I'm trying to do. I try to give information that you can Google, like, and go, oh, that is how that works, right? Shred. Dion, I'm debating if we should sell the Hawaii HI home and buy full in Dallas or pay off my home in Denver or California. Both Colorado and California have low interest rate. What would you do? Good question. Don't know your entire thing, so this is not financial advice. What would I do? Never pay off low interest rate debt, especially if it's fixed. That was one of them, and it wasn't even low. It was 6% interest when I paid off that single family house. So at the time, that was kind of high because I could have refinanced in 2020 to like 3%, like I did the other parts of my portfolio. But instead, years before that, I had paid it off. But I should have invested instead of paying it off. So I would look at investing instead of paying it off. But it depends on where you are in your, how many rentals do you have? Are you financially free? Are you looking at stabilization or growth? Kind of like, I will probably buy more rental properties because the money's building up. It has to go somewhere, right? And I'm not going to take the time to learn a new asset class. I wanted to diversify in one, right? One asset class, but well diversified, properties and tenant base. So I'm probably going to buy more properties. I've considered, so I have 6 mortgages. If I pay off a mortgage, then I increase my cash flow, right? Without adding to my workload. It's the least financially intelligent thing to do. That would be for emotional stability. Like I have less debt to worry, but the debt doesn't matter to me. I wish I had 1,000-year mortgages. I wish I had more debt. It's the cash flow and the stability of the portfolio that matter to me. So if you have the money to pay off a mortgage, can you invest? Can you, are you house hacking? Can you reproduce a house hack? And everybody goes, oh, I can't house hack because we're in a single family house. No, we'll buy a single family house with an ADU. It's just like having neighbors. Doesn't change anything. But you get low interest down, low down payment, owner occupied lending, best interest rate because it's owner occupied. You get all those benefits. Plus you reduce or eliminate your housing expense. So house hacking is I'm financially free, retired, still house hacking. Sometime I might go buy a single family house. I doubt it, but because I've never seen the neighbors here. Like twice the one next to me. I've seen the guy at the far end more because he pays in cash, covered in glitter. So weird. But can you add to the portfolio to increase the cash flow? That's probably, if you're in growth phase, more important than paying down debt. And it sounds like you have properties kind of spread out. And if you're ever going to sell it, because your first question was, should I sell it? Before you sell, cash out, refinance, take out a home equity line of credit, or do anything like that, the first question is, do you know of a deal where you can put the money to work that justifies the loss of this asset? The cost of selling, the even delayed but eventual paid taxes on that sale, like those kind of things. Do you know that that's going to happen? Is it cash flow? No, it's an alligator. Should you sell it because it's a bad investment? I think there's a lot of things there that aren't in the question. I would aggressively grow during growth phase, and then I would look at stability once you're no longer in growth phase. Does it make more sense to add another rental because you have the systems in place like I do, where it's going to be little, like I don't know that I'll notice 4 more rentals, right? 4 more units. I don't think I'll notice in my workload. 1 or 2 more texts or emails a month isn't enough to go, well, 4 more units added, 15 more hours a week. It's not like that. It's like it maybe adds 20 minutes a month, right? So yeah, for that, I'll probably do that. If you don't have the systems in place and another rental is just like mind stress, makes you forehead sweat, you'd be like, oh, maybe paying off debt, staying where I'm at. This is enough work for me, and then I'll increase my cash flow. It can make sense, but that doesn't mean it's the right option. What's best for you? Clint, question. How and when do new members join you for the private live stream? 4 p.m. Fridays, at least twice a month. You will get a members only notification on YouTube that says that just like you saw this YouTube pop up, this video pop up, that one pop up there, but only members will see it. You have to join to be a member, which if you can't see it on your current device, you have to maybe log over to a laptop onto YouTube, and then it should show up there. It's just a little button that says join. And then when that live stream comes out, just before, I'll open a Zoom. I'll share the link to the Zoom in the comments of the members only video so that you don't have to, but you're welcome to join the Zoom. And then we participate and we go over a different topic each time. And it is and this might sound bad. I'm a horrible salesperson when it comes to this. It might be boring. Right? The whole idea is it's videos that the average viewer on YouTube isn't going to stick around for, because if I just did those kind of videos on YouTube, it would kill my channel. So if I do it for members, you're coming in for us to talk real estate, your market, my market, look at deals, look at emails from agents and go, okay, here's why I would immediately dismiss that. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's how I would find out what I would do the next step. All that stuff that if you're just on YouTube because you want to kill 15 minutes and maybe educate yourself something, you're not going to watch somebody do that. But if you know that members at 4 p.m. on Fridays, at least twice a month, get together and you can interact and be on the Zoom, now that's not going to kill the YouTube channel. So that's how. JMC, thank you. And thank you for the question. Kelly, howdy. One unit is asking to renew another year with current rent of $950. My other units are at $1,050. She's been a good tenant with zero issues, but I don't want to get to a point where it's way below market, but don't want to have a disgruntled tenant. All right, so that's a great question, Kelly. I think it's a question. So if it wasn't, please don't be insulted that I'm going to take it like a question. So they're at $950. Your other units are at $1,050. What your other units are kind of matters, but what really matters is what is area average rent. So if it's a 2-bedroom, if area average is $1,050, then that's what you're working with. But if you are at $1,050 and area average is $1,200 or $1,300, that's the number that matters to you and the tenant, not that what the other units are at. So what is area average? So that'd be my first question. If you could put in what you think area average, have you done the study, looked at comps in the area to find out that many bedrooms with if does it have a garage, does it have a pool, does it have a shed, does it have off-street, multiple car parking, like all the things that can contribute to what rent should be comparable with the same amenities in the area. What are rents? If they're $1,050, then I would use the binder strategy. And maybe you've heard of the binder strategy, maybe not, but it's where you actually make a 3-ring binder where the first page is the picture of your property with current Redfin or Zillow estimates of what the value of the property is, because the tenant's going to be able to Google that. So you want to show transparency. You're using information they can verify. The next page is a map with printed out map of the area with little pinpoints off of apartments, Zillow, Trulia, one of the rental things, whatever's used most in your area has the most rentals on it, and you could say, look, these are the other rentals in the area, and then the next 5 or 6 pages are each of those rentals printed out with showing the area average rent. So if the area average rent is $1,050, you're going to show several that are there. If it's $1,300, you're going to show several that are there. Not your units and what they're at, but what is area average rent, because you don't want them to think this is just what you charge. You want them to think, what do other owners charge and other tenants agree to pay? So if it's $1,150 and you go, look, you're at $950, everyone around here is paying $1,150. I don't want to raise your rent to $1,150 and just kick you out, right? But I don't want to lose money either, because if I lose money, I have to sell the property. And the new owner is probably going to jack up the rent and do a rehab and kick you out. I don't know what's going to happen. But if everyone's paying $1,150 or $1,050 and you're paying $950, what do you think is fair? I don't think they're going to say $950. I've never seen it where they go, well, I want to renew at $950. That makes fair. Like, if the rents in your area, and I want to look if you were still there to put in the chat what your area average rents are. If it's $1,200 or $1,300, they might suggest the $1,050. They might suggest $1,100. That's how I raise the rent. I don't just raise the rent because then you have a disgruntled tenant. Include them in the conversation. Say, look, this is what you're going to pay if you move into this area. And you have the cost of moving, the deposit, the first and last, whatever the fees are to do that, chains of utilities, or you could stay here, but I don't want to lose money. Here's what the property's worth. So my property taxes, my insurance is based off of this new number, not what it was 10 years ago. But your rents are below average. Here's what the average is. And what do you think is fair? Then they suggest a rental number that it moves to. They thank you for the rent increase. And like I said, Michelle and Dan both had tenants ask for rents to go up. And then they said, that sounds great, but we're going to go lower than that. They might suggest a number. If you find area average rents are $1,400 and they're at $950 and they suggest $1,200 or $1,300 and all of your other tenants are at $1,050, maybe you're like Michelle and Dan and you go, hey, that sounds great. How about we just go to 12? But it's an increase, but you're not above average. I'm not comfortable. They suggested a number and you went down. Imagine how happy that tenant's going to be. So that's what I suggest. And that is the number one mistake that landlords make, that are former landlords who used to have property, is they didn't raise the rent. And it doesn't mean you just jack up the rent and get as much as possible so that you can make money, right? That'll give you tenant turnover. Unhappy tenants probably makes you a horrible person. But if you have a strategy of raising the rents, even if it's just, I'm going to do 5% every other year, if you're not going to use the binder strategy, at least do something, because property management, taxes, the cost of materials, the cost of the contractors or people that are going to do the work goes up. And If in 10 years you haven't raised the rent and inflation is kicked in every year, you might actually be making hundreds of dollars a month on that property, right? But based on the amount of money that you have invested in that property, you would be making thousands of dollars a month if you got a low cost index fund and got 4% return. But if you raise the rent incrementally, slowly, fairly with the tenant, especially including them in the conversation, you're probably getting a 30 or 40% return on your money at the 10-year mark on a rental. Every single one of my rentals is above 20% return by year 3. And that hasn't been a goal or a target. It's just been, hey, I should probably make a video on what the cash flow looks like. And then I sit back and go, holy crap. It's like you make a lot of money if you own a rental. More people should do this, right? So hope that helps. All-nighter, think you'll like the binder strategy. I think they might have left though, Kelly, because it took a minute to get to the questions. So that's another reason why the super chats are great. Kind of get your question in quick. But other times these questions come and it's 20 minutes later by the time we get there. So I try to get through as quick as I can. And I'll probably be wrapping up here pretty soon, but let me see where I was at with questions. Got through Kelly's question. All-nighter charges about 120 for a single small patch. That's totally fair. Like the travel time to get there, the cost of the materials, your skill. Absolutely. That's I probably think it's on the low end, but that's a fair price. I think almost every drywall repair I've had, no matter the size, has been around 200. Pretty much, yeah. Just so, and I don't even know sometimes the size because the tenant sends me a picture and I go, yeah, I send the picture to the handyman. Go fix this. Let's do that video. Perfect. I am in. Meet me in Vegas. Then we'll do the video. Red Berserk. Howdy. Always catch you on the way out. Nice. Maybe you catch me at double speed on the way in. So, sorry. Mark, thank you. Awesome. Basilio, I'm trying to get through. There's a few Angel R. Howdy highs in here too. I don't want to miss, but I'm trying to get to the questions before we wrap up. Basilio, Happy New Year. I'm investing in single-family homes in Jacksonville, Florida. Nice. There are markets where single-family homes make more sense than small multifamily. So I talk small multifamily because that's my market. My market, they make more sense. Your market could be totally different. But would love to move into multifamily to scale up quicker. That is one of the aspects. Most multi I have analyzed have near zero cash flow based on my calculations due to high interest rates. It is hard to find them. Low interest rate, low rents per door. What do you recommend me to do? Should I continue investing in singles? Single families are cash flowing an average of $273 per door. So this is a really good question. The $275 to $300 per door doesn't actually tell you the information you need or that I need. How much did you purchase the property? If you paid $4 million for a property and you make $275 or $300 a month, that's not so great. If you're $5,000 out of pocket, then you can look at the yield. It might be great, right? So how much are you investing to get the single family to get that kind of cash flow? What is the yield? Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. So figure that out. So that'll tell you which ones, and if you're getting zero on small multifamily, so that would be a negative yield because if you're setting aside for cash, maintenance, repairs, you might even be losing money. Then single family make more sense. Is the yield good enough? Are you looking at houses with ADUs? This is an often forgot asset class where most investors that want to scale, they put in multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, they forget. And there's like 7 colloquialisms that you might want to go through. ADU, DADU, JADU, granny flat, mother-in-law house, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit. You have no idea what the listing agent thinks that little building is going to be called. And the little building might be a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house next to the house. Doesn't mean it's this little building. We think that because if you want to build an ADU, there's building requirements. But if you're buying a property that has 2 houses that was built in the 80s, they might be 242 or 42.5 houses, right? So find it what's there by searching for it. So that's an asset class that's missed. Home buyers don't want it because they don't want tenants, and investors miss it because they're looking for small multifamily. So include house with ADU. The second thing with those, rents haven't gone up. Are you using current rents on the properties that you're looking at, or what you could get rents to with the binder strategy? Not what our area average, go a little bit below that, because the binder strategy gets you within the 10-15%, right? Confidently, I can make that decision on my purchases. Is the rents there? Here's my suggestion. Let's say, okay, so there's no houses with ADUs, single families, that's the return. You look at the yield, maybe it's not that great. Maybe it's amazing. You just keep doing that. Because if you're doing, I'm not going to calculate the math because Matt can do it in his head, but if your cost to acquire is small enough to where $275 to $300 per door is a great return, 15%, 10%, something like that, bigger than average in your area, then you can continue to do that. But if you look at small multifamily, here's my suggestion. Watch days on market. With the high interest rate, prices not slipping down in most markets yet, and they could. Matt is calling for a 5 to 10% decrease over the next year. Zuber's calling for a flat. I'm calling for up, because inflation is a thing, and inflation makes more dollars cost to acquire the same asset. So even if house prices go down, I think it might cost more money to acquire them. So, and that doesn't make sense to you. It's because I'm not explaining it well, but that's my reasoning on why homes are probably going to cost more in a year. I don't know which one of us is right. None of that matters. Prices, rates, and rents do not tell you when to buy. There's only two things that tell you when to buy. If you want to know those, let me know, because it means you haven't seen my other video on that. There's two things that tell you when to buy. But if you watch days on market and you see that properties were on 5 or 10 days, in my area, they were on for 4 hours. So if they started to be on 10 days, I'm making offers at 80% or 70%, 90%, an offer that makes sense at numbers that make sense to me, ignoring the list price. Got 2 of them accepted. Right, we've got 1 accepted, backed up because too much work. The other one, we'll see what happens next week when I come back from Vegas to see how this is actually going to go. But if it's been on the market longer than normal, like 2 or 3 times what was normal for your market, you have to know what was normal in your area, and all of a sudden you see something that's been listed longer, the goal is to find a motivated seller, somebody who has to sell. Not everybody with a property listed has to sell. A lot of them are like, wow, home prices are really high. If we sold, that'd be great. They put it up at where they thought prices were going, and then it sits and they don't get offers, and they're like, oh. A couple of years ago, 1% of listings transitioned from I'm going to sell it to, I didn't get my price, I'm going to turn it into a rental. It's 14%. Now, that's a Redfin article that just came out really recently. 14% of listings that went up, didn't sell for what they were, converted into rentals. So I don't know the size of the study group, what do they call it? Control group that they used to say this is what's actually happening. So if it's a small group, that might be 2 houses. If it's a huge group, it might be 300 houses, right? So I didn't get that far into the article in memorization. But 14% is a huge jump from 1% of homes transitioning to rental. So you might not have that motivated seller. They might just go to rent. But there might be other people who are like, it was inherited and the inheritors don't want a rental. They're going to sell. Divorce in the family, birth in the family, have to move, change in work, something where they're like, we hoped to get this. We're not. We're 30 days on the market now. We're carrying a mortgage month to month on a place we can't have. Your offer might start to sound more attractive by watching days on market, which is a shift from what happened from 2020 to 2022, where speed was your friend. You had to have that offer in minutes because less than an hour, right? To even be considered, because that owner didn't realize how many offers they were going to be inundated with. So those are some great questions. Thank you. And then Red Berserker. I was wondering if getting promoted too often recently affects your ability to get a loan. I've heard it is seen as unstable income by some banks. So that's a great question. And what you're hearing is a translation of lender speak into layman terms. The promotion doesn't make your employment look unstable or like you've changed careers. What it does is, let's say you work at a company and you're working 50 hours a week, and all of a sudden you take on new contracts and you've been working 60 hours a week for 4 months. 60 hours a week for 4 months. And your income went up by 10 hours of overtime every single week, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when I was making $17 an hour when I first started, overtime was $25.50. So 10 more hours of $25.50 starts to look significant. The lenders won't look at that overtime until it is proven over a period of time. So that promotion It's not that. So if you were making 60,000 and you get a promotion to 75,000, it's not that they go, that 75,000 doesn't count because it's a new role, it's a new promotion. It's the 15,000 that might not be considered in your debt to income ratio. Because what if you say, I didn't like the role, I step back? That's possible. What if you don't fill the role because you don't have the skill set, so you get stepped back? Or if you get fired, the likelihood of you finding another job that had the promotion level of $75,000 a year in income is less likely than you had a skill set that had you at $60,000 a year before the promotion. That skill set will more than likely find you another job at $60,000 a year. So until you have the track record in the new role for a period of time for the lender to go, that's the new baseline. Yes, that increase is probably not recognized as much. Hopefully that explained it well enough for you. All right, so I get there tomorrow. Was it a 6-7 hour drive for you? I'm an hour-long flight, and I am there until Wednesday. So leave Wednesday. I leave early Wednesday though. So you have my phone number, right? Email me. I give you my phone number. Text me. And you don't have to go to Vegas. We can totally do a Zoom thing too. So, yep. And then Sean, asset-based loans from All Nighter DSCR might be an answer for you. So I missed something from Sean. Go back up and see if I missed. Adam Calhoun, welcome to the group. Thank you for joining. I will see you at 4, hopefully, or you can watch the replay. They stay up after that too. I don't see a Sean question. Did I really miss one, or is it just not here? Maybe that was for Shred. Brett, howdy. What day is today? I have no idea. It feels like a Tuesday because I'm doing a live stream. All Nighter Hider, don't forget to punch the like button as you would a bankster. And then Chris, before we wrap up, unless I missed any other questions. Hello from Central Virginia. Howdy. I just spoke with my lender who really helped me understand what some of his other investors do. He is an excellent resource. So that's really cool, knowing what other investors do. Your lender and your agent are not your mentor. Your lender's job is to sell loan products and your agent's job is to close deals. But that doesn't mean they don't have good information, right? So you can act. I learned a lot from my lender. How to get the best interest rates. My first lender taught me how to do this. So this eventually, it might seem like it's not in her best interest, but she said, I can't go to my boss and say, I really like Dion. Let's give him a better interest rate. She said, but if you go to 3 other lenders and get loan offers from them that beat ours, and then you bring them back to me, I can take those to my boss and say, this is what we need to beat in order to keep the business. First 3 mortgages went through them because they were able to beat the competition. Last 4 and some refinances went through Fairway because they were able to beat them, and then they couldn't compete. So you can definitely learn from your lenders. You can learn from your agents, but remember, you date your lender, you date your agent, you date your rate, you marry the property, right? That's the thing. So your lender is going to not be in your day-to-day life 2 years from now, unless you're still getting loans from them, but that's still not day-to-day. That property is going to be potentially every day something that you're dealing with. Oh, so Sean, great. I can't see it. Don't know why it doesn't show up here for me. Thank you, All Nighter. You were my hero. I don't know why it's still not here. It's like it's hidden from me somewhere. So Sean asks a question. How do you qualify for loans without a job? Do they use rental income? Thank you. And then Chester, okay, got that. You guys are awesome. So here you go, Sean, if you're still here. Thank you. And for some reason, I didn't see the question. Sorry. When I was growing my portfolio, my income mattered, but I had a bad debt to income ratio. I started my first year making $17 an hour with $89,000 in actual bad debt in my name that I didn't know about until the divorce. So I wasn't making a lot of money. I was working a bunch of overtime, right? So that did make better than what sounds like $17 an hour, $17 an hour plus at least 5 to 10 to sometimes 15 hours of overtime a week. Plus I had a side hustle. So that helped. But I moved into a rental and rented out my house for 2 years. So I had a job at this point during your question, but after 2 years, I had the rental income. So they would look at the rental income in my tax returns. 75% of that counted in against the debt of any purchase that I was making, even the properties I was purchasing, as long as I had 3 months remaining on leases. So that's worked for the last 12 years of investing. But July of this year, I retired. I no longer have a job, but I have 12 years of rental income coming in. My job hasn't mattered for the last 3 mortgages or the last 4 refinances. They haven't even really looked at that. They've gone, we want to see your tax returns, which I guess does include W-2 stuff, but it's your real estate. And here's the really cool thing with real estate. 2021, I made $128,000 on profit. So paid principal, interest, taxes, insurance, set aside it was about 15% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy into this reserve account. Paid for everything, made $128,000 in profit. Paid $0 in rental tax because of depreciation. When you depreciate your buildings, you just literally go to the government and go, my buildings are worth more money, but they're a year older. So I'm going to take 27.5 years, divide that through the value of the buildings, not the property, take that money off of what I made that year. So you depreciate the buildings, which means it looked like I showed a loss. I carried it forward, $8,900 loss from 2021 to 2022. So you would think, how does that make it bankable? Right? I had a W-2, but now I don't. So I don't have that. So I made all this money and I carried forward a loss. And I expected early projections, and if you watch my videos, early projections for 2022 was $168,000 in profit. So the 203 that I made doesn't suck. I just need to get better at math. But I always project conservative, right? Always count on rents going down, which they never have. Count on expenses being more than they are. Count on all these things that can go wrong. So that my projections, it's never, oh, I thought I'm going to get 168 so I can live that way, and then I make 130. Holy crap, that would suck, right? But if you plan on 168, it's 203. My math sucks, but because I'm conservative. So I'm going to carry forward a loss. How does that make you bankable? The lenders will look at your rental income, they will look at your expenses, and they take depreciation out of the equation. So to my lenders, well, I had a job for the first 6 months, and I don't know what I made in that first 6 months. I'm probably going to have to figure that out. I haven't cared what I made at work in the last 4 years because I was just saving it all. Right? It was 100% savings rate from W-2 income because I was living off of less than 45% of rental income. And now I don't even know what it's way less than that. It's like 27% probably in one expensive month. But now they're going to look at just off rental. I made $203,000 in rental income last year, and it grew from the year before. So they probably won't consider the full 203 because it was 128 then to 203. There's probably going to be some variance in the middle that they call an average or consistency or whatever. But for me, that's enough to qualify for the next one because your income doesn't matter as much when they're going to be looking at the income of the rental property you are purchasing. Those first 2 years suck. They're the hardest. That's when you're the most limited. You have the most restrictions. The lender's saying you're not a safe bet. We don't know if you can find a tenant, screen a tenant, place a tenant, handle a maintenance, pay your property taxes, like all the basic things that it takes to run the business of owning a rental property. But 2 years later, they're like, oh, you haven't fallen on your face. You're a safer bet. We'll lend you more money. That's how it works without a W-2 once you've been investing for a while. So a lot of people think, I'm going to quit my W-2 and get into real estate. That's stupid. Yes, DSCR loans, asset-based lending, they exist, but they're a lot harder to use. Your credit score still matters. You need the down payment. Some of them you need a net worth at least 50% or 100% or 200% of the amount that you're borrowing, depending on the lender. Like there's all these other criteria that you put in place that while you have a W-2 and it's been consistent, that's something you can benefit from. Once you have the rental income, once you have the proven track record, yeah, the work doesn't become so important. So great question, Sean. And I'm sorry, still here. Thank you. I see that. Why didn't it not show up for me? And like I scrolled up too. So it's like it's missing. That's weird. Going to call Velocity today. So he's got a few realtors to tell. Also nice. Jordan, howdy. Have you thought about updating binder strategy to a digital version, or how could we do it digitally? Yes, I've actually thought about that. because I've done it. So I probably have the video, but it's not titled that or specifically to that. I have a video called Section 8, How To, right? And it's basically how to get things faster and to make more money. The binder strategy works on the housing authority, and I'm not going and sitting in an office with a binder talking to them, right? So this would work with any tenant. Matt does this through text. It can be text or email. Send a screenshot. Here's what the comps are in the area. Things you can look up and verify. So I should make a video on that. It's very, very simple to do it in email format. So with the housing authority, I did basically the same thing. I sent, here's what your tenant is currently paying. Like your, I didn't call them a tenant, your client, because it's a client for them, not a tenant. Your client is paying this. Your maximum is this, right? So I don't know what they were at, but the maximum was like 1,800. And I had an email from them saying that's the most we can go to. And I said, here's the comps, printed comps at 23 and 2,400. I want to go to 22. I'm not even going to what the current comps are, because they have a variance based on the demand in your area. So there's a link that Matt, the Lumberjack landlord, shared. I don't know if I can get it into the chat fast enough for people here. Probably not. Where you can go and look up what the HUD will pay based on your county. And then you can use this link to see what they did last year and what they're going to do next year and projected for the year after. And then they have a 10% variance above that. So knowing their data helps you communicate with them better, and then showing them the comps. That housing authority that sent me an email saying, they sent me an email saying 1,800 was the maximum. It was like 1,812 or something like that. It was the most that they could do, some weird number. I said, here's 23, 24. I only want to go to 22. That tenant's been at 22 now for 2 years. They acquiesced because they can't, just like the lender, they can't go to their boss and say, we really like this person, we want to keep them in the house, we should just pay them more. But they can go to their boss. A government worker can say, I've done the work. Here are the comps. They might take credit for the work that you did, but you do the work for them. Here's what rentals are going for in the area. Same number of bedrooms, because they only count bedroom count for housing authority. So not parking, not garage, not shed, not pool, not anything like that, just bedroom count. And they said, bedroom count wise, these are all more than what they're asking to go to. And their manager agreed. So since it works with housing authority, it can work with your tenants. Be clear in communication and try to understand that the person, how they communicate matters too. I have the person who gives me the envelope full of checks. She gives me 6 checks at a time, which I think we're breaking the law in Washington. You're not supposed to post 8 checks, but soon, because I don't want to make somebody in their 70s go down and learn how to use an app, right? Or get on the interwebs. But she gives me, I'm not going to go to her and say, hey, here's a text, here's an email. That's a person where sit down, she makes tea, we have a conversation. I talk to her about her kids. She's got an interesting life. Like I get to have a conversation with her. I'm not a people person, but it's nice to talk to her, right? And then the binder strategy is effective. So in that case, it wouldn't make sense to be electronic, right? But in most cases, yeah, an email and a text is probably going to work just as well as a binder. And you don't have to go. I'm comfortable going and sitting and talking with people. I have decent people skills. I have good situational awareness, and I go anywhere unarmed. Like I'm comfortable with that. If you're not, email might be the better format. And it's probably as effective. I should make that video. Thank you. Jordan, that was a good one. Sean, thank you. And thank you for the question. I'm again sorry I missed it. Ninja Vanish. Maybe just print a PDF and send it to the tenants. Good strategy. Yep. So yeah, in electronic form or PDF form, some people have asked, how long do you leave the binder in the tenant's possession? I usually do like 20 minutes. I have done overnight. But if you're doing electronic or PDF, it's permanent. So, which is good. You're giving data they can verify. And apparently my voice can last 3 hours-ish. We'll see how this goes. So the information being in the tenant's hands is not a bad thing, but the longer it's in their hands, the more likely they are to go online and verify. And the more likely they are to find a couple of rental comps significantly below what you're suggesting the area average is, showing them what the area average is. So you need to be clear in your communication, just like I am in person, when I actually say the words. When you do a Google search to verify the information that I'm showing you, feel free. I'm literally printing out the websites that I found, and these are recent from the last couple of days. You're probably going to find a couple of properties significantly lower than what the rents are. That's because in our area, we have some places that qualify for low income housing. So if you qualify for low income housing, I suggest you go find those. But if you don't, and that's not an option for you, here's what the rents are that you do qualify for. So you're clearly delineating, hey, if you qualify for low income, go for it. Look at the area. Do you want to live there? And know what qualification is. In our area, it's like you're at the significantly below the poverty level to qualify for that. And I know that we've had employees who are like, hey, you're doing a great job. We'd like to give you a raise. And they go, oh, hang on. I can't make $1 more an hour. If I make $1 more an hour, I no longer qualify to live where I'm at because they qualify for low income housing. So that's a barrier some people put in their own way. Chris, to all-nighter, this is our first straight investment property. Congratulations. We have house hacked the others. It is both exciting and fearful, as is anything in life worth doing. Keep at it. Every time you do something the first time in real estate, it's terrifying. Second time, it feels like you could write a course. And let us know how it goes. I spoke with Stephan, so Velocity, recently, and he is awesome. I was looking to use the 40-50-10. Good. And he explained everything in detail. The seller couldn't wait for my timing, so it fell through. Ouch. There you go. You didn't miss your chance. You missed that chance. And then as I wrap up here, the last thing, REI Stoners, are we doing a members live tonight? Yes, we are. It'll be at 4 o'clock. If Michelle is there, we're probably going to go over why she asked her tenant to lower the rent. And we're going to be looking at deals in your markets. So you're in my market, that'll be an easy one. But anybody else that comes and joins the Zoom, you can email me links from your agent if you don't want to share your screen, or you can share your screen and we can look at the link and we can tell you, groupthink, here's what we would look for. Here's what would be the red flags. And here would be and it isn't going to be, hey, jump on it, make an offer, because we don't know your market in most cases, but we can tell you, here's what I would start looking at, or if that deserves a deeper look. So thank you all very much for hanging out. Thank you for the new members. I appreciate it. Was a random Friday live stream. Planning on doing this again next week. It would be on Lumberjack's channel. We're trying to alternate those, and Millennial Mike whenever he gets days off, but he has to be available. So thank you all very much for hanging out on a Friday all-nighter. If I see you in Vegas, awesome. If not, we'll do a Zoom and we'll make that video. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.